My younger brother refused to eat anything with chili peppers, insisting on plain rice soaked in hot water. My mother flew into a rage and grabbed a stick to beat him, shouting, "Eat it, if you don't, I'll beat you to death." I stepped in front of my brother and shouted that he was allergic to chili peppers and could die from eating them. My mother had no choice but to back down, unexpectedly, after growing up without eating chili peppers. My brother turned out to be gay and even eloped with a muscular foreign man. Mom said it's all my fault for not letting my little brother eat chili peppers, and she'd beat me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my little brother was diagnosed with allergies. This time, I smiled and gave a thumbs up. Our mom is so smart. Hospitals are really shady. We'll listen to you. In my past life. My younger brother wailed with his lips swollen like sausages. My mouth hurts so much. It's painful and itchy. The internet says it's lip cancer. I won't live past 3 years, sister. Woo, help me. As a medical student, based on the symptoms, I quickly deduced that this was an allergic reaction. My younger brother usually gets inflamed from eating chili peppers, but last night he actually tried fried chili peppers directly. So I immediately called a taxi and took my brother to the best hospital in the district for examination. The doctor, holding the test report, said it was a chili pepper allergy, and since the patient was already confused, hospitalization was recommended for treatment. 1. When my mom arrived at the hospital, she said furiously, "Hospitals are all about scamming money. People from Sichuan and Chongqing have been eating spicy food for generations. How come he can't eat it? It's definitely because he hasn't eaten enough spicy food. He should eat more spicy food from now on. Once he gets used to it, he'll be fine." Seeing that mom was unwilling to pay, I took out the 3,000 yuan I had saved from my summer job to treat my brother's allergy. After 3 days of treatment, my brother's condition improved and he was full of energy. But after my brother grew up without eating chili peppers, he started dating a blonde, blue-eyed muscle guy. My mom forced him to break up, so they eloped abroad and disappeared without a trace. Mom believed I had conspired with the doctor to tamper with the drip and alter my brother's orientation, never once considering that there might be something wrong with my brother himself. Mom was already furious, and my brother poured fuel on the fire by saying, "Let your sister guide you more and teach you what romantic freedom really means." With bloodshot eyes, Mom beat me to death. In this lifetime, I will never meddle in other people's business again. Someone's looking for trouble. I won't stop them. What allergy medicine? It's all a scam. 3,000 for medicine. Why don't you just rob me? I've never heard of anyone having allergies in our family. My mom rolled up her sleeves and argued with the doctor, spitting saliva all over his face. Upon hearing this, my younger brother's eyes reddened with worry. "Mom, he's a real doctor at a proper hospital, a cultured person. You don't even know a single character. Don't talk nonsense." My mom froze for a moment, then covered her face and bent over, sobbing uncontrollably. "It's so easy for educated people to make money. Just make up a few new terms I've never heard before, and suddenly he gets to call all the shots. When we were kids and anyone got heat from eating chilies, we'd keep eating them while the heat was still fresh. Within a few days, the heat would pass and we'd be fine. You ungrateful child. You don't know how precious money is because you've never earned any. All you think about is wasting your parents' hard-earned money." People around turned their heads, pointed fingers, and whispered among themselves. The head nurse walked over quickly and asked if help was needed. I waved her away, sending the head nurse off, then stepped forward to help my mom up, wiping her tears while scolding my younger brother. "Mom has eaten more salt than you've eaten rice. You were raised by mom through thick and thin. She breastfed you and changed your diapers. Think carefully. Would mom ever harm you?" Unable to come up with the surgery fees, my younger brother had no choice but to follow us home resentfully. The walk home was a full 6 kilometers, yet my mom refused to take a single taxi, and wouldn't let me take one either. Mom insisted on making my younger brother walk back home, confidently declaring, "You know what, he's just not used to exercise. That's why he's being so delicate. Today's a perfect opportunity to get some physical activity." It was right at noon. The sun was absolutely scorching. By the time they got home, Miles' cheeks were flushed red, his eyes wandering unfocused, nearly fainting. He staggered to push open his bedroom door and collapsed onto the bed asleep. After Miles fell asleep, Mom went alone to the grocery market to buy her allergy medicine. An hour later, Mom returned carrying a large jar, beaming with joy as she pushed open Miles' bedroom door. "Miles, wake up quickly, the medicine is here." Mom twisted off the glass lid with a mysterious air, and a pungent smell hit us in the face, salty and spicy. My little brother covered his nose, puckered his sausage-like lips, and asked vaguely, "Mom, what is this thing? Why does it look like a pile of shit and smell so weird?" But my mom couldn't stop smiling. "That's exactly right," the boss said. "The stronger the taste, the better the effect, too. This has been fermented for 10 years, even money can't buy it." They say rich people all eat this. It prevents cancer and also protects against aging of the heart and brain vessels, Mom said while scooping a spoonful and bringing it to her younger brother's mouth. Good boy, open up wide. Little brother wrinkled his nose at the smell, turned his head away and gagged, then looked at that spoonful of crap with his swollen lips twitching, looking pitiful. Mom, I can't eat it. Is it too smelly? I have a solution. Mom pinched little brother's nose with one hand and shoved that spoonful of chili sauce toward his mouth with the other. Pinch your nose and you won't smell it. Eat quickly, Mom. Little brother's cheeks flushed red from being, and he opened his mouth to breathe. Mom seized this opportunity to shove the spoonful into little brother's mouth, then proudly raised her eyebrows and released his nose, seeing her younger son close his mouth. The mother beamed with joy. That's my boy. You're doing great, but the next second, the little brother sneezed violently, and chili sauce shot out of his nose, splattering all over the mother's face. The mother panicked. After scraping the chili sauce off her face with a spoon, she resorted to her old method, pinching her son's nose and forcing him to swallow, muttering all the while. This jar costs $1,000, we can't waste it. After swallowing the second spoonful, the little brother covered his mouth and started coughing, tears and snot streaming down his face, but after coughing, his eyes reddened again as he swallowed what was in his mouth. Mom smiled with relief. My son is so good, rest well and recover. I'll go make dinner. For dinner, Mom prepared a whole table of extra spicy dishes. Fried chili peppers, garlic chili paste, chili sauce. And even the rice was cooked with chili oil. Little brother showed his mouth, stretching it open with effort. The opening could barely fit a chopstick. Then he said pitifully, Mom, I can't eat the food, I'll drink milk. Saying that, the younger brother picked up the milk and started drinking it down in big gulps. Mother snatched the milk away from the younger brother with a dark face, then slapped her forehead and said, Oh no. How could I have forgotten about that? Under our puzzled gazes, Mother poured the milk into a cup, then scooped 3 spoonfuls of precious chili sauce into it. After stirring it evenly, she inserted a straw and handed it to the younger brother, saying gently, Drink it. The younger brother's hand holding the cup trembled slightly, his eyes filled with despair. He didn't want to drink it, but he was so hungry. Under his mother's urging, he frowned deeply and started gulping it down. He drank it all in one go, then rushed to the bathroom coughing violently with his hand over his mouth. His mother followed closely behind, making sure he wasn't secretly spitting out the medicine. After some sparse sounds from the bathroom, his younger brother's loud cry could be heard. Mom, my butt hurts so bad, it's burning, I'm not about to die, am I? Mom clapped her hands in delight and said, Getting it out is good, this is detoxifying. Once all the toxins are out of your body, you'll get better. After the bowel movement, my younger brother became even more depressed, looking completely worn out, and fell asleep immediately. The next day, my younger brother's condition not only failed to improve, but he also started having bloody stools. The bathroom was filled with a terrible stench. Mom covered her nose and used a stick to stir the reddish-black clots in the toilet bowl, her eyebrows furrowed tightly together. Good boy. It's fine as long as the contaminated blood comes out. Hold on a bit longer, Mom will mix some more chili milk for you to nourish your body. I looked at my younger brother who was 150 centimeters tall and weighed 150 pounds, smiling without saying a word. Dad pointed at Mom's nose and shouted furiously, What kind of bullshit home remedy is this? There's internal bleeding, which means internal injuries. Do you understand? I think we should take Miles to the hospital. He's our only son. We can't let the family line die out. Mom frowned slightly, her expression complex, then slapped her forehead and said, It's all my fault for trying to be innovative with the recipe, not using regular millet peppers, but instead using aged chili paste. She scratched her head and thought for a moment, then added, For chili therapy, you must use fresh chilies and follow the traditional recipe. The fresher the chilies, the better their potency and the more effective the medicinal properties. She directed my dad to go to the field and pick a handful of fresh bird's eye chilies. Once harvested, they were quickly placed in a stone mortar and pounded into a large bowl of chili paste. My mom held the bowl, admiring with satisfaction the miracle medicine she had personally concocted. My younger brother frowned slightly and asked in a hoarse voice, Mom, why do you have to crush the chili peppers so finely? My mom explained with a smile. You're still too young to understand the intricacies of this. You have to crush it to release the medicinal properties inside, just like how you need to chew your food properly. But since your mouth is swollen now and it's inconvenient to chew, we'll just crush it instead. See how thoughtful Mommy is. In her younger brother's dazed and confused gaze, Mom inserted one end of the straw into the bowl and brought the other end to his lips. Here you go. My good boy, drink your medicine. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans rolled down my younger brother's forehead. He tried to bolt for the door, but his body was too weak, and he stumbled and fell to the ground, his left foot tripping over his right. When he lifted his head again, his face was covered in blood, a terrifying sight. His swollen lips had been cut open from the fall. Mother nervously helped him up and carefully wiped away the bloodstains, muttering to herself, "Oh dear, if you don't listen to your elders, you'll suffer the consequences right before your eyes. Just take your medicine properly, and you'll be fine." Saying that, Mom took the spider web from the corner of the wall and carefully applied it to the wound on his lip, continuing to mutter, "We're too poor to afford medical treatment. If it weren't for your mother's home remedy, you'd be dead by now." The younger brother took it to heart, so he pinched his nose, grimaced, and swallowed a whole bowl of chili sauce in one go. After covering his mouth and gagging a few times, he asked in a trembling voice, "Mom, what did you put in the chili sauce? Why does my mouth feel so numb and painful? It feels like it's about to rot away." Mom smiled brightly as she raised her hand to help him adjust the position of the spider web on his lip, and said confidently, "I added an extra handful of fresh Sichuan peppercorns, which has better antibacterial effects." I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. Chilies and Sichuan peppercorns, all poured into the mouth. How could it not hurt? This must be what ancient torture methods were like. That evening, my younger brother said he was thirsty and gulped down mineral water straight from the bottle. Mom looked at the large mineral water bottle, her eyes lighting up, and said to my dad, "Quick, go get some fresh chilies. I'll crush them and pour them in." Dad glared and said, "That's enough. Let the boy have a good drink of water." My younger brother finally felt relieved and drank 3 big bottles of water in a row, his belly visibly swelling up. In the middle of the night, just as I had fallen asleep, I was awakened by a bout of crying and fussing. Looking through the window, I saw my brother with a flushed, swollen face rolling around on the bed, his big belly round and taut like an overripe fruit about to burst. Mom and Dad pushed the door open to check. "Oh no. My baby, what happened?" Little brother was sniffling and crying, his voice squeezed out from between his swollen lips. "Mom, it hurts so much, my stomach is so bloated, but I can't poop." I quietly left the window, crawled back into bed, drew the curtains, and continued resting. In this life, I will never meddle in other people's business again. A rustling sound came through, mixed with Mom's anxious voice. "Oh no, why is he still so hot?" Immediately after, Dad's furious shouting followed. "What are you standing there for? Get him to the hospital now. With such a high fever, what if he dies? The one family's precious son will be ruined by your hands." Mom immediately called for a car, while Dad helped carry my younger brother toward the door. I didn't want to go together, but because there wasn't enough room at home, I had been living in a tent on the balcony. When they passed through the living room, they remembered there was someone in the tent and dragged me out to join them, saying I was a medical student. "If we go together, the doctor won't be able to overcharge us." When we got to the hospital, we went to the emergency room. After hearing my mom's fight poison with poison remedy, the doctor couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Ma'am, you sure know a lot. I've been a doctor for 10 years. And this is the first time I've witnessed such a remarkable feat with my own eyes." Mom proudly lifted her chin. "This is a family recipe passed down through generations, so you must keep it a secret." Soon, the proctologist arrived, gloved hands ready, and began to examine my younger brother with a digital rectal exam. My younger brother let out a trembling cry. It hurt so much." Passers-by stopped in their tracks, looking over this way. Dad was embarrassed by his younger brother's behavior and scolded him. "What the hell? Why are you shouting? Hold it together." The younger brother finally closed his mouth, but opened another one. With a loud puff, the putrid smell of chili peppers instantly filled the entire examination room. It was too spicy for the eyes. Rotten chili paste mixed with foul excrement. It smelled like dead fish mixed with chili peppers, thrown into snail soup, plus some stinky tofu, fermented for 3 days and nights. I was so overwhelmed by the stench that tears streamed down my face as I covered my nose and fled for the door. The doctor, even with a mask on, was also nauseated by the smell and turned aside to vomit. I bolted for the door, where patients holding their queue numbers were cursing and grumbling. "Holy crap, what kind of biochemical weapon is this? It's absolutely disgusting, damn it. Who's so gross as to crap in the examination room?" I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Mom came out following me and glared at me reproachfully, saying, "Your brother is this sick, and you're still laughing. Do you wish he'd just die already?" I quickly shook my head. "No, it's just that the smoke made my face twitch." The doctor followed us out and cleared his throat lightly. "Family, please stop arguing and come over here." He pointed to the image on the list and explained at length before saying gravely, I've seen many cases of people eating too many chilies before, but this is the first time I've seen such a severe case. It's probably because the mortar you used to crush the chilies wasn't clean. There are many bacteria in the mortar. Isn't that exactly right? Because chilies are expensive. To save chilies, Mom never washed the stone mortar. The mortar reeked with a musty smell, and there was a layer of grayish fuzz inside. Mom said those bacteria are chili resistant and can grow in a chili mortar, so if my little brother eats the bacteria along with the chilies, he'll become chili resistant too, the doctor added. Bacteria entered the bloodstream through the damaged intestinal mucosa, causing a systemic infection. The most severe case is this lip, which has already become purulent and necrotic. Strange. The rate of necrosis shouldn't be this fast. On the way here, the spider web on the younger brother's lip fell off, so the doctor scratched his head, unable to figure out the reason for a long time. When a venomous spider web lands on a wound, how could it not become purulent and necrotic? Mom pressed her lips tightly together, beating her chest and stamping her feet. Oh no, I shouldn't have believed those home remedies. Dad's eyes reddened, tears welling up as he asked in a trembling voice, "What now? Is there still hope for my son?" The doctor frowned slightly and said seriously, "First, we'll administer antibiotics to control the systemic inflammation, then we'll schedule surgery to remove the infected and necrotic tissue. His condition will improve, don't worry." After a week of treatment at the hospital, the swelling on my younger brother's body finally subsided, and he had lost a significant amount of weight. The surgery can be arranged tomorrow. However, before the surgery, Mom ran away with my younger brother. That evening, I was burning the midnight oil under the desk lamp when there was a loud commotion at the door. It was Mom returning home with all sorts of luggage. My younger brother followed behind Mom, and the light slanted across his face, making the thumb-sized abscess on it particularly conspicuous. I asked in confusion, "Mom, are we transferring hospitals?" Mom's face turned dark, and she said with a stern expression, "Transfer what hospital? Do you know how much the surgery costs? A full 6,000 yuan, it's just draining some pus. Why are they charging so much money?" Dad gave a thumbs up. Your mom's quick thinking saved the day. We slipped out the back door in the middle of the night. No one stopped us. We just walked right out in broad daylight. We didn't even have to pay the hospital bill we owed. Little brother frowned. "What about my mouth? I've got this huge pus-filled bump. It really hurts." As he spoke, the bump was disturbed, and a stream of yellowish pus burst out. Little brother cried out in pain. "Ow." Mom looked at me, her eyes gleaming with a light that made my blood run cold, and said, "Don't we have a medical student in the family? We have a perfectly good doctor right here. Why waste money going outside?" Dad nodded repeatedly. "Exactly, a boil is just a chunk of flesh. You just cut it off. It's not some kind of technical skill." With Dad's support, Mom turned and went to the kitchen to sharpen a knife. When she came out, the kitchen knife gleamed with a white light under the lamp, extremely sharp. "Alicia, come quickly and help Miles cut the boil." I waved my hands repeatedly. "I've only been studying for 2 years. I haven't even reached the internship period. I've never even touched a scalpel. I have no experience. What if I hurt my younger brother? In this lifetime, I don't want to have anything to do with my younger brother." I pointed at my mother's dirty hands. "You're our family's veteran chef. You've cut every kind of vegetable. It's just cutting a pus-filled bump. Shouldn't be too hard, right?" My mom nodded satisfactorily and walked over to my younger brother with a kitchen knife in hand. My younger brother jumped up from the sofa in fright. "Mom, if you cut me with that knife, I'm afraid I'll bleed to death." Mom glared at him. "Nonsense." My younger brother ducked behind the table while anxiously looking at me. "Sis, say something." I twirled the pen in my hand, pretending not to understand. Say what?" Seeing I wasn't going to back him up, my brother stammered an explanation. "Mom, do you know where the blood vessels are? If you cut a blood vessel, it could cause massive bleeding and death." Mom thought about it, realized he had a point, and switched to the ash method. You just apply the wood ash to the infected area, and once it absorbs enough pus, the scab will fall off naturally. To make the treatment more scientific, Mom even spent 50 cents on Pinduoduo to buy an instructional video on the ash residue method. The experts all said so, and there are pictures as proof. The wood ash can treat pus. If we follow the experts' advice, we can't go wrong. After watching the instructional video 8 times, Mom was brimming with confidence. "My current knowledge is worth half a dermatologist." Mom had her younger brother lie flat on the Kong bed and stay relaxed. Pus flowed along the grooves of his mouth corners, pouring straight into his nose. Little brother was choked up with tears, got up and sneezed 3 times in a row. Mom tore a strip of cloth, rolled it into a ball, and stuffed it into little brother's 2 nostrils. Only then did she continue her operation, extending his right hand. "Assistant, get the Baijio." Ouch. I handed Mom the half bottle of Baijiu left over from Dad's drinking, probably due to the alcohol's too strong irritation. Little brother was in so much pain that he trembled all over. Mom, it hurts, Mom explained excitedly. It's supposed to hurt. The alcohol is disinfecting. Mom grabbed another handful of ash and pressed it onto my younger brother's lips. My younger brother let out a blood-curdling scream. Immediately, the sound came to an abrupt halt. It was Mother covering his mouth. From the calloused hands, streams of black soot trembled out between the fingers. Don't move, Mother scolded. The soot will get on your clothes and be hard to wash out. The younger brother's face grew increasingly red, and his struggling movements became weaker and weaker. Mom thought her younger brother had calmed down and smiled with relief. However, the light in his wide, staring eyes was growing dimmer and dimmer. Mom finally realized something was wrong and quickly let go of her hand. The face beneath her hand had turned an unnatural purplish red and was completely still. Mom's brows furrowed slightly as she patted her younger son's cheek. Wake up, Miles, wake up. There was no response whatsoever. Mom's eyes instantly reddened. Her trembling hands tore away the cloth blocking her son's nostrils. Then she shook his body frantically, crying out in anguish, Miles, don't scare me like this. Hearing the commotion, Dad burst through the door, seeing his son's purplish red face. He shoved Mom aside and placed his calloused, trembling fingers in front of the boy's nose. His expression grew increasingly grim. After a few breaths, he looked up, his eyes also reddened. My son was just being all cute and cuddly with me. How come he's not breathing now? You damn women, what the hell did you do? Dad's voice got louder and louder, and those last few words were practically shouted, making the roof shake 3 times. Mom's face grew redder and redder. She quickly stepped behind me, grabbed my shoulders and pushed me forward, her voice trembling with tears as she said, Alicia, you're studying medicine, quickly take a look, what's going on here? In my past life, before I was beaten to death, I called my younger brother for help. Quick, explain yourself. Mom is furious, she says I corrupted you, but I didn't, but my brother was only concerned with shifting blame onto himself, confidently saying, it was you who said love and marriage should be free. Mom, upon hearing this, flew into a rage, grabbed a thick stick, and started hitting me on the head, yelling, I think all that schooling has made you stupid. You've got problems, trying to cut off my family line. I'll beat you, you ungrateful daughter. I clutched my bleeding head, reaching for my phone, but Miles had already hung up. Mom snatched the phone away, saw my injuries were too severe. Said the medical bills would definitely be expensive, so she dug a hole and buried me alive. For, when I came to my senses, I found myself pushed in front of my younger brother. On that purplish-red little face, the lifeless eyes stared straight at the ceiling. Mom said shakily, Alicia, quickly save your brother. He just died. He can definitely be revived. Dad looked at me with eager eyes. Quick, quick, save him. My younger brother is currently in cardiac arrest due to lack of oxygen. If I perform CPR now and wait for the doctors to arrive, he might still survive, but in this lifetime, I never want to have anything to do with my younger brother again. I clutched my head with both hands, widened my eyes, and suddenly plopped down on the ground, screaming, there's a dead person, there's a dead person. Mom quickly covered my mouth and scolded, keep it down, do you want the whole neighborhood to know? Dad sighed, pulled out his phone to make a call while grumbling. What's the point of studying medicine? I ask you to help someone and you get scared like this. I might as well rely on 911 than count on you. Mom was still trying to comfort me, hoping I'd snap out of the shock and offer some suggestions, but I kept pushing myself backward on the ground, staring straight at Mom with tears in my eyes, sobbing, Wah, don't come near me, don't kill me, I didn't see anything, wah. Dad saw the situation and grabbed Mom's shoulders, yelling angrily, Fiona. What the hell did you do? Why is the kid so scared? Mom threw her hands up in innocence and stammered, I don't know either. Mom and Dad were at their wits' end, scratching their heads. Mom suddenly remembered something and asked Dad, didn't you call that hospital's ambulance last time? Dad frowned slightly. Yeah, quick, let's go to another hospital. Mom urged anxiously. Why? Dad asked in confusion. Don't you remember? We slipped out of that hospital last time without paying the hospitalization fees. As Mom was saying this, she tried to grab the phone, but Dad pushed her away. What are you doing? Did you forget? There's only that one hospital in our county. Mom was so anxious she stamped her feet in frustration. Oh no, what about the hospital bill from last time? Dad, furious, slapped Mom across the face and shouted, Miles is dying. We're about to lose our son. And you're still worried about those few $1,000s? Are a few $1,000s more important than our son's life? You're usually so smart. How come you're being so foolish at a critical moment like this? The mother suddenly realized, yes, saving his life is what matters most, but in the end, they couldn't save his life, and those few $1,000s were reclaimed by the hospital as well. All of this was caused by Mom herself. It has nothing to do with me. Mom was so overwhelmed by guilt that she went insane. One day, while I was sleeping, I felt something choking my neck, making it hard to breathe. I suddenly opened my eyes to meet Mom's bloodshot gaze. She was trembling all over, her voice filled with sobs. In the previous life, you clearly saved him. You could have saved him. In this lifetime, why are you being so reckless and indifferent? It's you. You're the murderer. You deserve to die. Hearing the commotion, Dad rushed into the room, violently pushed Mom's hands away, then threw her over his shoulder and pinned her down. Mom crawled forward in a dark and twisted manner, desperately grabbing onto Dad's pant leg as she sobbed. It's her. She could have saved our son. She's the real murderer. I threw my hands up in exasperation. You've completely lost your mind. You've eaten more salt than I've eaten rice. If you can't figure it out, what makes you think I can do anything about it? Mom, furious, lunged at me again, but Dad pinned her against the pillar and tied her up with a sturdy rope, then pointed at her nose and shouted, "Marrying you, you crazy woman, has brought me nothing but bad luck for 8 generations. You've already ruined my son, and now you want to ruin my daughter too." 5. I hid behind my father's broad shoulders and smiled gently at my mother. Mom, rest well and don't worry about anything else. The end. Story 2. Our father force-fed my sister and me beast transformation pills for the family's benefit. She became a white rabbit, while I turned into a green snake. After our transformation, my strong-willed sister was sent to the old emperor's harem as a breeding tool. Unable to navigate court intrigues, she was murdered during pregnancy. The timid and fragile me was delivered to Moonpluck Pavilion, where nobles toyed with me mercilessly until beaten to death. When we opened our eyes again, we'd returned to the day of the forced transformation. My sister and I exchanged glances, a silent pact. I nodded. This lifetime would be our era, sisters reigning supreme. Father summoned us to the ancestral hall again, producing 2 mystical pills. Lyra, Jade, don't blame your father, blame your worthless female birth. For my future and your brother's prospects, swallow these beast transformation pills obediently, to maintain our family's prestige. We select young women with unique physiques and transform them into beast folk using ancestral elixirs on their coming-of-age day, trading their altered forms for the clan's benefit. The current emperor suffers from low virility. For years his only heir was a prince born to a palace maid. His desperate longing for progeny makes a rabbit-eared maiden's appearance certain to secure the imperial lineage. In our past life, after being beaten and forced to swallow beast transformation pills, my sister became a fertile rabbit girl while I transformed into a seductive serpent woman, yet father never considered our temperaments. My sister's unyielding nature ill-suited her as a docile rabbit consort, just as my timid disposition made me unfit to charm countless men as an alluring snake woman. As we both instinctively reached for each other's beast transformation pills lying before us, I knew in that moment, we had both been reborn, this time. Let me bear the suffering you endured in our past life. The pills set our bodies ablaze with searing pain. After what felt like eternity, twin beams of azure and white light flashed through the ancestral hall. My sister transformed into a green serpent while I became, against all odds, a rabbit. After meticulously recounting every detail of our previous lives to each other, my sister officially began her tenure at Moonpluck Pavilion, while I boarded the carriage bound for the imperial palace. After entering the palace, His Majesty bestowed upon me the title of Jade Beauty and granted me residence at Dewflower Palace. My top priority was preparing meticulously for my first night serving His Majesty. I ordered a floral bath prepared, scrubbed myself until I smelled divine, then changed into alluring silk garments. After transforming into a rabbit girl, my figure became considerably more voluptuous. In my past life as a serpent maiden, I was forced to master esoteric arts. Though reborn as a rabbit girl now, that knowledge remains etched in my mind. Men generally fall for the same old tricks. When the Emperor visited my chambers that night, his eyes lit up at the sight of me. My form-fitting dress accentuated every curve, while my twitching bunny ears added an innocent charm. No one can resist such a seductive yet adorable creature. The Emperor swept me off my feet without hesitation. My breath hitched. The forbidden art stirred desire as my warm breath grazed the most sensitive spot on his neck. Your Majesty, the Emperor couldn't resist touching my bunny ears, making me blush instantly. Truly a fascinating bunny girl, though I wonder if you could truly bear me an heir. I smiled demurely. Why don't you try it and find out? In her past life, my sister remained aloof, even when the Emperor, intrigued by her rabbit girl identity, sought her company that very night. She responded with indifferent courtesy, as though the Son of Heaven meant nothing to her. The humiliated Emperor never visited her chambers again. The palace denizens, ever quick to fawn on the favored and scorn the fallen, subjected her to escalating cruelties without imperial favor, though my sister cherished the peace to focus on her training. Her rabbit spirit's fertility ensured pregnancy from that single night with the Emperor. The nearly 40-year-old emperor had only one heir, a prince born to a laundry maid, raised by the childless empress. My sister's pregnancy earned her a promotion in rank, yet the empress and imperial consort saw my sister as a thorn in their side, masking their malice with frequent courtesy visits. The empress laced her tonics with abortifacient safflower, while the consort perfumed her gift fabrics with musk. Even with her natural fertility, my sister couldn't withstand repeated schemes against her, ultimately perishing tragically along with the unborn child. Unlike my domineering sister, I must first find ways to gain the emperor's favor. After entering the palace, the emperor was already at the point of no return, yet an ominous sound came from beyond the door. The emperor's voice carried a hint of irritation. "Who's there?" A palace maid named Mabel, clad in sheer gauze, timidly entered from behind the door. "It's this humble servant," she murmured. "I merely feared Lady Jade, being new to the palace, might be unfamiliar with protocol, so I waited outside." A chill ran through my heart. While it's customary to assign bedchamber attendants in the palace, such arrangements must always be approved by the mistress. This Mabel is actually a spy sent by the favored imperial consort Ren to sabotage my chances of winning the emperor's favor. In my past life, after my sister's hasty and unpleasant night with the emperor, this woman swooped in to steal his affections. After becoming a consort herself, she shamelessly hurled insults at my sister. This time around, I'll make her my first target. My damp eyes welled up with visible distress. "Your Majesty, Mabel has turned traitor. Earlier she bullied your humble servant, calling me a country bumpkin unworthy of being your Majesty's consort." Mabel's eyes widened in sheer terror. Why would Lady Jade falsely accuse this lowly maid? "I never spoke such words, Your Majesty." This injustice cuts deep. Mabel turned deathly pale, trembling like a leaf as she desperately tried to explain herself. I feigned fear and nestled into the emperor's arms. "After all, I'm just a delicate little bunny who couldn't possibly wrong anyone." The emperor's mood had already soured from the interruption, and seeing this vulgar fool Mabel dare to overstep her station ignited his murderous intent. "Guards, drag this insolent wretch away and beat her to death." Watching Mabel being gagged and dragged away, I nestled in the emperor's arms with a cold smile. In another lifetime, the emperor might have taken interest in this little maid when faced with my aloof sister, but now his heart and mind were wholly set on possessing me. After our night of passion, the emperor was clearly quite pleased with me. Not only did he bestow upon me rare jewels, but also granted me the privilege of the pepper chamber. Perhaps Mabel's execution last night made them realize I'm not as weak and defenseless as I appear. The palace maids have all become much more subdued. There were originally 4 senior maids serving directly under me in this palace. Besides the executed Mabel, Celine was the queen's spy. Freya answered to the Empress Dowager, all treacherous servants who bullied my sister before betraying her. Only the most inconspicuous Zara belonged to no faction. Loyal and kind-hearted, she chose to follow my sister in death. When the tragedy occurred, I immediately declared my preference for quiet, dismissing all but the dullest maid Zara to attend me personally, while relegating the others to menial chores outside the hall. I didn't miss the flicker of disdain in some eyes, though none dared openly question my decision. For 7 consecutive nights, the emperor seemed utterly enchanted, choosing to stay in my chambers every evening. After breakfast that morning, I noticed several maids missing besides Zara, undoubtedly scurrying off to report to their true mistresses. I gently caressed my belly, contemplating how to use this pregnancy as a greeting gift for the harem. Indeed, rabbitfolk pregnancies progress this swiftly, but with the current complicated palace situation, I've decided not to carry this first pregnancy to term. As I sat pondering on the daybed, Consort Ren suddenly stormed in with furious energy. Too, her palm struck my cheek, sending a searing pain across my face. "You wretched woman, Mabel is my distant cousin. How dare you, riding on your fleeting novelty, persuade His Majesty to have her executed?" Pressing a hand to my stinging cheek, I let out a cold laugh. "Just when I needed a fool, here comes one delivering a pillow. If she were truly the noble consort's cousin, why would she serve as a mere maid in my quarters? Could it be her ladyship's jealousy over His Majesty spending every night here that's turned her so sour?" Consort Ren never expected me to be so blunt. Her composure shattered instantly when His Majesty doted on me. "You are still crawling in the dirt, a few nights in the royal bed, and you dare spew such insolence. I'll teach you proper manners." The consort raised her whip and lashed toward me, terrified. I shapeshifted into my rabbit form and leaped 3 meters backward, right into a pair of waiting arms. The emperor glared at Consort Ren from the corner of his eye while I trembled in his arms. "Jade's just an innocent, delicate little bunny. What's the meaning of this intrusion?" Consort Ren, long the emperor's undisputed favorite, burst into tears. This was the first time he'd ever confronted her so harshly. "And all for another woman's sake, Your Majesty." This concubine merely sought to discipline an impudent junior consort. Seizing the chance, I took human form and pointed at the swollen slap mark on my face, sobbing, "How cruel of Consort Ren! She forbade me from approaching your majesty, claiming you belong to her alone. She even threatened to kill Jade. I'm terrified." The emperor flew into a rage, instantly slapping her back and punishing Consort Ren with 3 months of confinement and half monthly allowances. Consort Ren, long accustomed to being spoiled, covered her cheek in utter disbelief. "Your Majesty, this is unjust." The Empress arrived in haste with impeccable makeup, putting on a show of being the peacemaker. "Our younger sisters all adore your Majesty, so occasional friction is inevitable, but Consort Ren has served in the palace for so long, you know her temperament best, surely she wouldn't act so unreasonably. There's no need for your Majesty to be so enraged." Then she turned to me. "Since His Majesty favors you, you mustn't let it go to your head. You should get along with your sisters and refrain from scheming in the palace. These prayer beads have been consecrated before Buddha day and night. I bestow them upon you now. Learn to quiet your mind." The Empress truly played her hand masterfully. Her spies must have reported the situation, for she arrived in full regalia, fully prepared. With her seemingly impartial words, she instantly sowed seeds of suspicion about me in the Emperor's mind, but I've already devised a countermeasure. That two-faced queen would never expect this. By daring to step into my Luhua palace today, she's practically begging to be framed. I only meant to cripple the imperial consort, but that idiot queen came rushing in herself. What a fortunate day indeed, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I knelt and received the string of prayer beads, then reverently placed them around my neck. "This humble concubine thanks your Majesty for the generous gift. I shall cherish it and wear it daily." The corners of the Empress's lips curled upward. The Emperor finally caught the veiled implications in the Empress's words. Having spent years with the imperial consort and the Empress, he still held some trust in them, and now regarded me with visible displeasure. "We owe this to the Empress. Had it not been for her, we might have been made a fool of." Feigning ignorance, I rubbed the prayer beads between my fingers with childlike innocence, releasing an unusual fragrance into the air. I lowered my head and took a deep breath. Oh, what a wonderful fragrance! The Empress paled instantly upon seeing my movement. Before she could react, I collapsed to the ground, a pool of crimson blood spreading beneath me. Ah, my belly, the pain is unbearable. No one could believe it. How could I possibly show pregnancy symptoms so soon after just a few nights with His Majesty? Little did they know, rabbits have an incredibly short gestation period, just 40 days to complete a reproductive cycle. Empowered by the Emperor's endorsement, Consort Ren immediately regained her haughty demeanor and began mocking me. "You vile creature, first, you falsely accused me, and now you dare frame the Empress. Though none of us have borne children, every woman knows pregnancy symptoms take at least a month to appear. Your scheme is pathetically transparent." Though the Empress doubted I could conceive so quickly, the prayer beads were indeed tampered with. The crown prince she raised may be incompetent, but he remains His Majesty's only son. Consort Ren couldn't tolerate me sharing the Emperor's favor, and the Empress would never accept the possibility of me bearing his child. Eager to cover up the scandal, the Empress hastily interjected. Indeed, the inner court was peaceful until Lady Jade's arrival. "A rabbit girl will always be uncouth. For the stability of the realm, your Majesty should have her executed." The Emperor gazed at me with visible conflict. Though he disapproves of my cunning ways, I truly provide him with unparalleled pleasure. Seeing me clutching my stomach in genuine agony, he finally summoned the imperial physician. The physician took my pulse, his face registering shock as he stood speechless for a long moment. Disappointment clouded the Emperor's face as he declared, "Consort Jade is deceitful and ill-mannered. Demote her to palace maid and confine her to the cold palace." The imperial physician exclaimed excitedly, "Your Majesty, Lady Jade wasn't feigning pregnancy for favor. She's truly with child." The Empress and Consort Ren both paled. "Impossible. Did that wretched woman sneak in with some bastard from outside the palace?" The Emperor gasped. "That can't be. Jade's first night with me was. How could she conceive so quickly?" The Emperor looked down at me drenched in sweat, hastily wiping my forehead with his sleeve as he apologized remorsefully. "Jade, I was overthinking things. How could someone as innocent and pure as you possibly be as wretched as they claim?" The imperial physician explained. "Lady Jade is a rabbit spirit, different from ordinary humans. I've heard rabbits can deliver in as little as 1 month, but alas, this pregnancy couldn't be sustained." The Emperor flew into a rage, gripping the physician's throat violently. "What did you say? How could Lady Jade lose the child when everything was perfectly fine?" The physician pointed at the prayer beads around my neck. "I dare not deceive your Majesty. Upon my arrival, I immediately noticed an unusually strong fragrance from the prayer beads around the noble consort's neck. It resembles specially blended musk, more potent and rapid in effect. Moreover, with her ladyship's facial injuries and distressed state, It has undoubtedly affected the unborn child. The emperor yanked the prayer beads from my neck, snapping the cord and scattering the beads across the floor. The empress collapsed in terror. The imperial physician picked up a bead for closer inspection and nodded gravely. Indeed, these beads have been steeped in musk and sealed with wax, undetectable at first glance. Prolonged exposure would harm both the fetus and the mother. This particular musk is exceedingly rare. May I inquire where her ladyship acquired it? The emperor kicked the empress to the ground. You venomous witch, what possible defense remains for you? The queen protested. Your Majesty, I'm innocent. I truly don't know how this happened. Someone must have switched the evidence to frame me. The emperor sneered. Oh, then tell me, who could possibly commit such a capital offense right under the empress's nose? Gritting her teeth, the queen pointed at Celine standing behind me. This wretched maid was caught stealing from my palace days ago. After I reprimanded her, she was transferred to Consort Jade's quarters, and now she dares commit this brazen deception. Celine fell to her knees with a thud. Your Majesty, this humble servant. The queen's matron immediately knocked Celine unconscious. The emperor sneered. Noble consort Ren, for bullying imperial concubines, 20 face slaps and demotion to consort rank. As for the empress, failing to vet her staff properly, relinquish your authority over the inner palace, with further punishments. Suddenly, a voice came from outside the door. Father, would you truly punish the empress? She is the mother of our nation. As I recognized the approaching figure, every hair on my body stood on end, consumed by profound terror. The visitor was none other than Jared, the crown prince and the dynasty's sole imperial heir, born to a palace made from the Zenziku. He was raised in the imperial retreat since birth, as the emperor held no affection for his mother, yet no one anticipated the emperor would remain heirless thereafter. With no further royal offspring born, the crown prince had to be summoned back and placed under the empress's care. In our past lives, he happened to be my regular patron at the Moonlit Pavilion. He endured relentless bullying since childhood, which twisted his personality as he grew up, after being named crown prince. In his euphoria, he actually beat me to death that time, but when my panic subsided, I noticed the elder prince's sallow complexion, listless demeanor, and an eerie greenish aura shrouding his royal presence. It seems my sister's efforts have borne fruit. The emperor's expression softened slightly, though he disapproved of his son's frivolous demeanor. This was after all his only son, and potentially the future heir to the throne. With Jared present, we shall spare your mother this time for your sake. She remains your rightful queen mother, and her presence will be required at your investiture as crown prince next month. Overjoyed, Jared immediately knelt in gratitude. I am deeply grateful for your Majesty's mercy. However, Father, beastkin women are not fully human. Different breeds harbor different loyalties. It would be wise not to overly indulge the Jade consort. The emperor pondered for a moment before saying, we shall handle this with proper discretion. 3. Celine took the fall for the empress and was dragged out to be beaten to death with clubs. My elder sister mentioned that Celine had secretly poisoned her in their past life. Eliminating this threat now was for the best. The crown prince noticed me standing nearby, his eyes gleaming with interest. That was the same look he always wore in our past life whenever he intended to torment me. I thought to myself, if he ever became crown prince, neither my sister nor I would escape his wrath. I'll never give him that chance again in this lifetime. The moment I regained my health, I immediately sought the emperor's attention. The emperor has been preoccupied with preparing the crown prince's investiture ceremony, leaving him no time to visit the imperial harem these past few days. Whispers about me falling out of imperial favor grew increasingly rampant. Little did they know, I'd already secretly conceived another royal heir. When the Empress Dowager learned I'd lost the child through foul play, nearly causing discord between the Emperor and Crown Prince, she scolded me for being jinxed. They even sent over the heart-cleansing sutra, with Freya overseeing my daily kneeling recitations as penance for the lost royal heir. My sister says the Dowager Empress is a ruthless old crone, but her sole obsession is the imperial lineage. She spoils the crown prince unconditionally. Cross him, and she'll make your life miserable. But just as water can float a boat, it can also sink it. This weakness can be sharpened into a blade for my own use. I copied Buddhist scriptures with bowed head, while Freya haughtily devoured tribute melons beside me, never missing a chance to reprimand. Lady Jade, I'll admit you're quite the schemer, but in life, luck matters too. Since you've failed to bear His Majesty an heir, and managed to offend the Empress Dowager, the Empress, the Crown Prince, and the noble consort all at once in this harem, your fall from grace will come swiftly. When that day comes, where will you find a palace made of my standing to serve you? Freya became utterly full of herself. With the Emperor's long absence, she flaunted the Empress Dowager's backing, trying on my robes, adorning herself with my jewels. Sitting before the vanity lost in fantasies of being presented to the emperor as his new favorite, on the day of the crown prince's investiture ceremony, I arrived at the grand hall in plain attire with weary countenance, accompanied by the radiant Freya and the equally modest Zara. All who laid eyes upon me swiftly averted their gazes. The empress and consort Ren flanked the emperor, both sneering at me with contempt. The triumphant crown prince merely glanced at me at first, but then marched toward me with unnatural determination. As if possessed, I sensed the crown prince had fallen under my sister's serpentine influence and steeled myself in secret. To everyone's shock, the crown prince actually initiated physical confrontation. A sudden realization struck me. I understood my sister's scheme. Letting out a piercing scream, I collapsed heavily onto the ground. Oh heavens, why is there blood? Help, my child, stop him, the crown prince. The emperor immediately ordered guards to restrain the deranged crown prince. The assembled ministers buzzed with hushed discussions. What's going on here? How could the crown prince suddenly make improper advances toward Lady Jade? It must be Lady Jade who seduced the crown prince. Those rabbit girls probably know some dark arts. The malicious whispers around me made it clear they'd rather believe I, the victim, had seduced the crown prince than question his moral character. What was Lady Jade shouting about her child just now? Could she be pregnant again? The Empress Dowager snorted coldly and descended with her cane. Your Majesty, execute this witch at once. The coronation of my imperial grandson shall not be disrupted by anyone. I raised my teary doe eyes to gaze at the Emperor. Your Majesty, I carry your royal air within me, though others remained skeptical. The Emperor, having witnessed the unbelievable before, summoned the royal physician to examine me. The Empress Dowager gestured toward Freya beside me and said, Your Majesty, why cling to that rabbit girl? I've handpicked Freya for you, a most virtuous maiden. With her attending you, this old heart shall rest easy. Hearing her name, Freya hastily pushed past me to curtsy before the Emperor. Still preoccupied with my condition, the Emperor brushed Freya aside. The imperial physician couldn't contain his excitement this time and eagerly reported to the Emperor, Lady Jade is with child again. The Emperor asked cautiously, Is the child still there? The physician nodded vigorously. Not only is the child well, but according to the pulse reading, Lady Jade is carrying multiple blessings. The Emperor burst into unrestrained laughter. We're having children again, Jade. We shall elevate you to consort Jade. Once the child is born, you'll become noble consort, then Empress, haha. The Empress and consort Ren's faces darkened with displeasure. Only then did the Emperor notice Freya persistently blocking me. Seeing my haggard appearance and plain attire contrasted with Freya's lavish garments and exquisite jewelry, he struck her down with a furious slap. Treacherous slave, while your mistress lives in hardship, instead of serving her properly, you've been scheming to climb the social ladder. Mother Dowager, is this what you called honest? Zara, who'd been quietly protecting me, seized the moment to drive the point home. Your Majesty, Freya deceived the Empress Dowager with her false humility, abusing Her Majesty's favor. She's tyrannized our palace and bullied noble consort me. One might mistake her for the mistress. That's my brilliant girl, quiet as a mouse until she roars like a lion. The Empress Dowager's attitude toward me took a complete turn at this moment. Your Majesty, this old woman lacks your discernment. That vile wretch Freya dared mistreat the very woman ensuring our royal lineage. She deserves execution. Freya's dream of becoming an imperial consort shattered. Indeed, in the previous life, my sister fell out of imperial favor while the Empress Dowager successfully imposed her chosen candidate Freya upon the Emperor. Freya then supplanted my sister as the true mistress of the palace. But in this lifetime, everything has changed. Freya was dragged away and beaten to death. The Emperor, recalling the crown prince's recent fit of madness, summoned the imperial physician to examine the heir's pulse as well. The imperial physician's face turned pale the moment he took the crown prince's pulse. Your Highness has been consumed by debauchery and lust, leaving his body hollowed out. Though appearing strong, he's but a spent arrow at the end of its flight, utterly spent and worthless now. Enraged, the Emperor immediately ordered the revocation of the prince's royal sash, demoting him to commoner status and confining him to the imperial clan court. The Empress rushed down like a madwoman to intervene. Your Majesty, Jared is your firstborn son, legally recognized under my name as the legitimate heir. I beg you to give him another chance. The Emperor remained unmoved. The Empress suddenly had a realization and cried out, the crown prince was bewitched by that sorceress. There's a brothel outside the city called Moonlit Pavilion. Those vile women there deceived him. Your Majesty, you must apprehend the true culprit who framed our prince. A cold sweat instantly broke out across my body, for the Empress seemed aware of the crown prince's brothel habit, but since society always blames the women in such affairs, she'd never intervened before. Who'd have thought the hunter would get pecked by the hawk one day? Fearing my sister might get caught, I suddenly cried out about stomach pains to divert the Emperor's attention. The Emperor and Empress Dowager were solely preoccupied with my pregnancy, leaving no room to investigate the moonlit pavilion affair for now. Secretly, I sent Zara out of the palace to warn my sister. Before leaving, Zara asked, "Won't your highness give this humble maid a token? How will they believe me otherwise?" Looking at Zara's youthful face, I smiled and said, "Silly girl, you yourself are the best proof." That very night, before the imperial guards could raid the moonlit pavilion, mysterious flames erupted. The fire defied all attempts to extinguish it, reducing the famed capital landmark to ashes by dawn. The emperor fell into prolonged silence upon hearing the news. The crown prince's downfall was inevitable, but who set the moonlit pavilion ablaze remains the burning question. I spoke softly from the sidelines. "He who points fingers often wears the guilt himself, your majesty. Consider this, who keeps dragging the moonlit pavilion into discussions while trying to absolve the crown prince." Enraged, the emperor immediately confined the empress to her quarters for a year, forbidding any movement without imperial summons. Gently caressing my slightly rounded belly, I casually remarked, "Your majesty, my time draws near, yet without kin by my side, my heart grows restless. I've a sister raised in the countryside, might she attend me during my confinement?" The emperor granted this without hesitation. My sister entered the palace. Seeing my radiant sister standing before me in all her peerless grace, I wept joyful tears. My sister pulled me into her embrace and patted my back tenderly. "Silly jade, why the tears? I'm perfectly fine. You're the one carrying a child. That must be exhausting. No more crying now." After I'd calmed down, my sister shared how she'd been faring at the moonlit pavilion these past days. The dual cultivation technique she'd mastered in her past life now flowed even more naturally through her serpentine form. Those high-ranking officials sought to drain Sister's yin energy to replenish their young, but she turned the tables, harvesting their young to nourish her yin cultivation instead. Every nobleman who visited Moon-Plucking Pavilion became Sister's cultivation cauldron in the end, through the serpentine chi she left on them. Sister could peer through their eyes and puppet their movements at will. The Crown Prince incident, that was Sister pulling strings from the shadows. At the mention of the Crown Prince, hatred flashed across my sister's face. "After how he tormented you in our past life, Sister naturally wouldn't let him off easy. I've placed a curse on him. Let's go witness his suffering together." When we reached the Imperial Clan Court's dungeon, Jared was writhing in agony on the floor. His eyes briefly cleared when he saw us. "You're in league together. Speak, what's your scheme? Is this about your father trying to steal our family's throne?" My sister scoffed. "That old fool, he's not worthy. I hurt you only because you harmed the one who matters most to me." My sister handed me a dagger. "Go now, take your revenge with your own hands. That so-called crown prince is nothing but an ant beneath our feet." I nodded obediently and plunged the dagger into the crown prince's shoulder. Oops, my hand slipped. Missed the mark. Bear with me a little longer. Next strike, I'll aim straight for the heart. The crown prince glared at me with murderous intensity, but my sister's binding spell left him completely immobilized. It took over 300 stab wounds before the crown prince finally drew his last breath. No sooner had we returned to the palace chambers than I detected an ominous presence in the air. Then a dull ache began pulsing through my abdomen. Oh no, someone lit the labor-inducing incense. The Empress emerged from behind the screen. "Just focus on delivering the baby safely, Consort Jade. The moment the child is born, I'll send you to meet Yama. I'll raise your children as my own. They'll be my legitimate heirs. Whoever becomes emperor, I'll be their dowager empress." Ah. The Empress laughed triumphantly, but her mirth was short-lived, for she was witnessing the most breathtaking sight of her life. My sister beside me transformed into her emerald serpent form, having drained the life force of countless nobles, now radiating terrifying power. The queen's legs gave way in terror as she shrieked, "Guards, help, a monster!" She desperately tried to flee my chambers, yet the exit remained perpetually beyond reach. My sister conjured an impenetrable ghost barrier, terrifying the queen out of her wits. The commotion caught Zara's attention. I gasped, "I'm going into labor. The queen's trying to kill me. Fetch the emperor now." Though frightened, Zara sprang into action with remarkable efficiency. She could sense no malice from my sister. On the contrary, the serpentine aura brought an oddly comforting familiarity. By the time the emperor and his entourage arrived, I had already given birth to 7 princes, and my elder sister had regained her human form. The Empress leaned weakly against the corner, speechless, still clutching the hemorrhage-inducing poison she'd intended to use against me. The Emperor immediately ordered the Empress's execution, named me as the new Empress, and declared my firstborn son the Crown Prince. The Emperor's expression darkened the moment he saw my sister's face. "Jade, your sister is truly a peerless beauty. Would she consent to become my imperial consort, as your own flesh and blood?" I shall bestow upon her the title of noble consort, the highest honor. My sister and I exchanged glances before she broke into a radiant smile. With greatest pleasure, once installed as noble consort, the emperor became utterly enchanted, refusing to be parted from my sister day or night. Consort Ren had hoped my childbirth would give her a chance to regain the emperor's favor, only to have my sister steal the opportunity. In a fit of rage, she stormed into our chambers. The moment she raised her hand, my sister struck her so hard she coughed up blood. I nearly forgot about you. How convenient that you delivered yourself to me. Consort Ren stared at my sister in disbelief. You're the Serpent Maiden. Does His Majesty know? How dare you strike me? I'll expose your true nature to the Emperor. Without even blinking, my sister lashed out with her tail again, striking Consort Ren dead on the spot. How can the dead file complaints? How foolish. I fawningly massaged the muscles of my sister's serpentine tail, terrified she might overexert herself. My sister said she'd nearly drained all the Imperial Dragon's energy from the Emperor, and told me to pick an auspicious date to send him to his grave. I checked the almanac. Why wait for an auspicious day when today's as good as any? How about tonight? The Emperor lay weakly on his bed, yet his gaze toward my sister remained infatuated. Perhaps he'll never know how cruelly he treated her in their past life, when my sister lay dying with swollen belly. The Emperor took one glance and turned away in disgust. Is childbirth truly this repulsive? She's just some rabbit-breeding wench. Don't bother saving her. Smother the creature. My sister covered the Emperor's mouth and nose with her hand. His eyes widened in shock as he drew his last breath, death refusing to close his lids. After the Emperor's passing, the Crown Prince ascended the throne, and both my sister and I became Empress Dowagers. Upon hearing the news, Father rushed to the palace. Claiming our achievements were thanks to his upbringing, he demanded we repay him by yielding the throne, to be passed later to his sons and grandsons. 5. My sister and I exchanged glances, then burst into laughter. My sister personally brought down a cup of medicinal wine for Father to drink. Father was all smiles at first, but in a wave of agony, he transformed into a dog. Since you love turning people into beasts so much, now you can be one yourself, as Father kept barking incessantly. My sister casually tossed a bone his way. Those with rebellious thoughts in the court all submitted obediently under my sister's formidable authority. Peace reigned across the land, a harmonious tranquility everywhere. As the crown prince and princess grew up, my sister and I remained eternally youthful. We journeyed together through the magnificent landscapes of the realm, righting wrongs along the way. At 300 years of age, we suddenly ascended to immortality in a celestial transformation. From that day on, the people revered a pair of benevolent immortals, the serpent goddess and the hare goddess, who brought salvation to the suffering, forever honored with offerings through the ages. Story 2. Our family has had only one son in each generation for 9 generations. My parents treat my younger brother like a precious treasure and call me a jinx. I was meek and submissive, only hoping that they would love me a little more. Unexpectedly, when the apocalypse came, they drove me out of the house, yet I found an oasis and was determined to go back and save them. But I discovered that my grandmother, the only one who was kind to me, had also been driven out by them and lost her life due to the high temperature. In this life, I awakened the reincarnation system. I won't be a good for nothing anymore. In this life, I only want to protect the person I love the most. 1. When I opened my eyes, it was a sunny day with not a cloud in the sky. The burning pain in my memory was still vivid, but the oncoming breeze made me feel a real sense of coolness. I had returned to the days before the high temperature started, the days when my grandmother was still alive. It was June, and there was less than a month left before the high temperature arrived. At this moment, I had just had an argument with a group of my peers because they mocked me, saying, "Born but not raised." Jinx, indeed. Ever since my parents noticed that whenever they went out with me, it would be overcast, spoiling their good mood, and after they had another lively and outgoing son, they never paid attention to me again. Even my classmates called me a jinx and didn't want to be around me. In order to please my parents, I took on household chores voluntarily, worked part-time to support myself through school, and handed over all the money I earned. But I still couldn't get a kind look from my mother. All I got in return was a new pair of shoes for my younger brother. I was already 18 years old, but I didn't even have my own room. But it was also a good thing because I could share a small room with my beloved grandmother. She was the only one who never called me a jinx. She would hold me in her arms and say, "My dear, you're my little lucky star." Who said I had no one to raise me? My grandmother was the one who raised me. But as I grew up, my grandmother grew old. In the previous life, in order to give my younger brother more resources, my parents drove me out of the house. However, I accidentally awakened the survival system and discovered a potential oasis. But when I went back to pick up my family, I unexpectedly saw my grandmother's shriveled body 3 kilometers away from home. I couldn't imagine how a thin old woman with silver hair managed to brave the high temperature and come step by step to find her dear granddaughter. What's more, this was no ordinary high temperature. At that time, my grandmother had already gone on a hunger strike for 2 days to give the young people in the family a better chance of survival. I hated my parents deeply. How heartless could they be to let an old woman in her 70s go out in the high temperature? They didn't just not know that this would be a farewell, they knew it but still wanted my grandmother to die. Because the water source was decreasing, the food was being consumed. And with one less person, they would have a greater chance of survival. Fortunately, my grandmother was still alive now, and my survival system had also been activated. This time, I wouldn't be a good for nothing anymore. I had a month to prepare, for my grandmother and for myself. I would never let the tragedy happen again. I clenched my fists and vowed secretly. The survival system gave me the ability to predict the weather. Next, City H would experience an unprecedented high temperature. Far beyond anything in the past, almost like the end of the world. In fact, I didn't lose my life in the high temperature in the previous life because I awakened the survival system and found a hidden oasis. I was ultimately beaten to death when I brought my grandmother's body back to my parents' place and begged them to let her be buried properly. My dear parents and younger brother beat me to death because they were afraid that I had come to take their resources. The last sight in my previous life was my younger brother hitting me with a wooden stick again and again, while my parents watched coldly. Therefore, I no longer wanted to be a savior. I could only tell them the information I knew, and whether they believed it or not was up to them. I wouldn't get involved in other matters. After recalling everything, I wiped the wounds on my body and limped home. As soon as I opened the door, I heard my dear younger brother analyzing the weather for my parents word by word and telling them that he had awakened the ability to predict the weather. Mom, Dad, I've awakened the ability to predict the weather. The temperature will drop sharply next. You must take cold-proof measures. Hearing my younger brother's words, I became extremely angry. If my parents really did as he said, it would definitely lead to disaster. Remembering their cries in the high temperature in the previous life, I still couldn't bear it. I informed my parents, there will be an unprecedented high temperature next, you must prepare supplies in advance to deal with it. But I was mercilessly mocked. You just like to oppose your younger brother. Isn't every summer the same? If you want to cheat money, stay away. I forced a smile. This was truly incredible. I looked at my younger brother. He stared at me and showed a strange smile. I suddenly remembered that when I returned home in the previous life, I found that the temperature inside was much higher than the high temperature outside. Could it be that my younger brother also had a system? I stopped arguing and turned to enter my grandmother's room. Too, the stairs creaked, a familiar sound that made me feel warm. My grandmother and I lived in a small attic on the second floor. My younger brother had his own room, which was big and bright. We were twins, but since childhood, my body had been much better than his. My parents said that I had taken away his nutrients, so they had disliked me since I was a child. Moreover, after they found that taking me out always brought bad weather, while taking my younger brother out brought sunshine, they hated me even more. What's more, in their hearts, my younger brother was the one who could take care of them in the future. Fortunately, I still had my grandmother. Since I was a child, whatever my younger brother had and I didn't, my grandmother would find a way to get it for me. My grandmother paid my tuition fees. My mother thought my grandmother was biased, but wasn't she herself just as biased? The sunlight shone on the rattan chair. My grandmother held a palm leaf fan and looked out the window. Lost in thought, I walked up to my grandmother and said, "Grandma, shall we move out?" My grandmother shakily took out a savings book from the drawer and handed it to me. This was the dowry money she had saved for me. "It doesn't matter, Grandma will support whatever you want to do, my dear." My eyes began to well up with tears. Since I was a child, I had been excluded by my parents and envied my younger brother, but because of my grandmother, I had never really experienced a difficult life. I told my grandmother about the high temperature in the previous life. She didn't say anything, just held my hand tightly. "Those who love you will naturally trust you." My grandmother was very thrifty and had saved up 800,000 yuan, but I didn't accept the money. Instead, I found the lucky money I had saved. In fact, my parents didn't trust my younger brother that much either, they just doted on him. However, they also bought some cold-proof supplies. At my younger brother's strong request, they even bought charcoal, while my parents were busy. I went to the area near the oasis I found in the previous life. It was a wasteland that seemed to have no signs of life at all, but in a month, it would become a small oasis, so I hired a group of workers to help me build several container houses there. All the materials used should be heat-resistant, such as polystyrene boards, polyurethane foamed boards, rockwool boards, etc., although my requirements were rather strict. Since I paid well, it could naturally be done. Moreover, Since we were in a small rural area, the labor cost was very low, so it didn't actually cost that much. For water and electricity, I chose solar generators. As for water, of course, I was counting on this oasis. When the high-temperature apocalypse came, a large amount of water would be evaporated, and the water supply simply couldn't keep up. By the time I had made these preparations, almost a week had passed. My oasis shelter had taken shape. In the following days, I needed to stockpile a large number of supplies to withstand the high temperature and food that was easy to store, but it was summer now, and the prices of the supplies I needed were not low. Just as I was worried, the weather in City H suddenly changed. It rained heavily for several consecutive days. Even the temperature suddenly dropped below zero. This drop in temperature was very strange, unlike the usual minor fluctuations. It had caused panic. I had to take out my winter down jackets and wear them. At this time, my parents began to show off. My son is so smart, he could predict this big drop in temperature in the middle of summer. Fortunately, we were prepared. No, in their eyes, my younger brother had become a genius, and what I had said before now seemed almost impossible. The temperature dropping below zero in the middle of summer naturally made people panic. Some even said that the Earth was about to enter an ice age. Everyone went crazy buying cold-proof supplies. How could this be? Could my survival system be wrong? Ding, system reminder, the extreme environment on Earth has been activated. This temperature drop is a hint of the high-temperature apocalypse. I hope the host can seize the opportunity and pass this test. It took me a long time to understand what the system said. In fact, it meant that there would still be a high-temperature apocalypse next. And this was just making everyone go in the opposite direction. If everyone prepared for the cold at this time, but then endured the high temperature, it would naturally be a disaster. At the same time, my grandmother secretly handed me a lottery ticket. I asked Grandpa Hugo to buy this for me before, check it for me and see if I won. My grandmother handed me a crumpled lottery ticket. To my surprise, when I checked, I found that it had won 50 million yuan. I secretly told my grandmother the good news, but she seemed very calm. Go and do what you want to do. My grandmother was so calm that I began to wonder if she knew everything. Thinking of this, I put on my down jacket and went to the market to buy the supplies needed to withstand the high temperature. Many merchants were selling their goods at low prices, so I got a great bargain. With 50 million yuan in hand, I decided to upgrade the shelter for my grandmother and me. There was a dilapidated villa near the oasis. I actually wanted to buy it before, but the seller insisted on 1 million yuan and wouldn't budge. Now I could finally buy it. Unexpectedly, when I called, the seller was willing to sell it to me for only 800,000 yuan. Because of the disastrous weather in City H, they decided to move to the south. I thought carefully and suggested that they move to the north because there might still be a chance of survival in the north during the upcoming high-temperature weather. I quickly completed the transfer procedures. I almost bought all the heat relief supplies in City H, solar generators, freezers, refrigerators, air conditioners, fans, and even stored a large amount of ice in the basement. In terms of food, I even set aside an area in the villa and equipped it with a temperature control system to ensure that my grandmother and I could eat fresh vegetables. I also prepared a lot of medicines, especially those related to heat stroke. The original owner of this villa built it for preventing sunstroke, so the materials used were heat insulating and fire-proof, which saved me a lot of trouble. Now the supplies stocked in this villa could ensure that my grandmother and I could live comfortably for 20 years. During these days of going out early and coming back late, my parents and younger brother had all gained weight. They wrapped themselves up tightly every day, and because of his predictive ability, my younger brother was even more pampered by my parents. He could get whatever he wanted. They didn't care at all what I was doing every day. They even filled the small attic where my grandmother and I lived with charcoal. The already narrow space became even more crowded. My grandmother and I lay on the small bed together, and I hugged her tightly. "Grandma, we'll have a good life soon." My grandmother hugged me back, as warm as ever. Early the next morning, my parents were waiting for my grandmother and me with 2 suitcases. "Mom, you've seen the situation at home. It's too cold, and I'm afraid you can't stand it. You and Nan go and stay in our hometown for a while. It's quiet and warm there." My mother said this with great sincerity, but we all knew the conditions in our hometown. The rickety house and the shabby furnishings. In the end, my mother just wanted to drive us out. In such an extreme living environment, our departure would relieve a lot of burden for them. I called a car, although it was absurd for such weather to appear in June. Under the reassurance of the relevant departments, everyone had begun to restore normal life order. Well, we could just live as if it were winter. My grandmother and I came to the villa I bought. My grandmother stood at the door, hesitant to go in. "Grandma, this is your villa." I took out the property deed, which was in her name. This was our home. It took my grandmother a while to accept all this. Looking at the supplies all over the house, she wasn't surprised at all, nor did she scold me for buying so many supplies to withstand the heat in such cold weather. She just hugged me and said, "My dear, you've worked hard." In this way, my grandmother and I moved into our new home. I opened the suitcase. Well, my mother didn't pack a single cold-proof piece of clothing for us. It was all summer clothes. I calmly sorted them out and turned on the temperature control system of the villa. Whether it was extreme cold or heat, my grandmother and I could get through it safely. Moreover, I always believed in my judgment of the weather. Sure enough, the next day, the rain in City H stopped, and the temperature began to rise. Everyone was cheering, thinking they had survived this disaster. But they didn't know that a greater disaster was yet to come. The temperature rose rapidly, out of concern. My grandmother and I went home a few times. However, we found that the cold-proof supplies at home had increased instead of decreased, perhaps because we had experienced it before. We were still haunted by fear, but my younger brother is supposed to be able to predict the weather. Why doesn't he know that a high-temperature apocalypse is coming? I looked at my younger brother, and his eyes were evasive, as if he was hiding something. Ding! The survival system prompts. There was a system malfunction before, and there was an error in the release of the temperature drop news. Part of the system has been taken back. Oh, it turns out that my younger brother's system has been recovered, but he is still stubbornly insisting that this is just a temporary warming. That's why my parents have placed so many flammable items at home. I tried to persuade them for a long time. They said, "You're just jealous of your younger brother. You're not convinced that he has this ability, so you want to cause trouble. How could I have given birth to such an ungrateful child? Everyone has their own destiny, so I decided not to meddle in this matter anymore." But unexpectedly, their retribution came quickly. The high-temperature weather lasted for several days, and the charcoal at home spontaneously combusted. The small attic where my grandmother and I lived was burned to the ground. Our family suffered heavy losses. And now the weather is getting hotter and hotter, and there are more and more cases of heat stroke. Many people have collapsed under the sweltering heat. At the same time, my parents found out about my large-scale purchase of heat relief supplies before. My parents know how much money I have. Fortunately, because of the temperature drop, I bought goods at low prices. Although I spent a lot of money, it was still beyond my financial means. After all, I had to hand over all my money to my mother. Following the clues, they soon found me, but I was careful. During this period, I didn't live in the villa but in a container. The container is also equipped with a temperature control system, and the temperature is naturally very cool. As soon as they came in, they exclaimed in delight, "God, isn't the power cut off? Why is it so cool here?" When my parents saw me, they started scolding me. "You're so young, but you're not learning well. You're squandering our money and enjoying yourself here. Shameless, you've even learned to steal money. You're such an ungrateful child." The abuse came at me like a flood, making me dizzy under the high temperature. At the same time, there was a commotion outside, and there were many relatives outside. It turned out that my parents had deliberately found so many relatives to boost their momentum in order to take away my supplies. I don't know why they were willing to come in such high temperature, but I soon found out. "Open the door quickly and let us in. Didn't we agree to divide the supplies together? Why are you going back on your word? Don't forget, we still have your son in our hands." It turned out that my parents had promised these relatives that they would divide my supplies among them in exchange for their help. They also gave all the supplies to my younger brother. Looking at the pale faces of my parents, I knew that they didn't want to divide the things at all. Now these supplies of mine are more precious than gold, but because of my younger brother, my parents still opened the door. These relatives rushed forward. Some were carrying water, some were holding vegetables, and some were trying to remove the solar generator. I just thought it was ridiculous. Looking at the scene, my parents felt very distressed. After all, these things could have belonged to them. Since they had nowhere else to vent their anger, they took it out on me. "If you hadn't stolen the money, we wouldn't need their help. How much money do you still have? Hand it over." "That's our money. That's my money." Suddenly, a familiar voice rang in my ear. The old woman walked towards me step by step with the help of a cane. She pushed aside those people and stood in front of me, scolding loudly. I gave her the money. Who has any objections? At that moment, for the first time, I felt the feeling of being protected. But then I protected my grandmother and loudly replied to my parents, "Am I an ungrateful child, who drove us out of the house in the cold, who only packed summer clothes for us in the suitcase, who gave my younger brother good food and clothes and made us squeeze into the shabby attic?" As soon as I said this, the relatives began to talk. This completely enraged my mother. In a fit of anger, she rushed towards me and started fighting with me, but unexpectedly, a figure stood in front of me. It was my ungrateful younger brother. "Mom, sister must have a reason for doing this. Maybe she found a shelter for us. After all, we're family." As soon as my younger brother said this, My mother looked at the relatives who were frantically grabbing the supplies in the container and seemed to wake up suddenly, in the face of the apocalypse. Supplies are the most important thing. According to my mother's stingy nature, she would never let these relatives take advantage. 5. My mother, my father, and my younger brother, I don't know where they got the strength, but they snatched back the supplies that the relatives had taken and drove them out. Since my son didn't use your things, what we said doesn't count. As soon as she said this, several uncles and aunts were so angry that they spat at the container. I was very disgusted by my parents' behavior and said a few words for the relatives. If you think so, go and stay with them. This way, we can have more supplies. It's only right for a daughter to take care of her mother. I was about to kick open the door, but unexpectedly, my grandmother walked out shakily. Dear, my dear, can't leave. I want to stay with my dear. The weather outside was very hot. My grandmother was very emotional and hugged me tightly, then she fainted, fortunately. A few relatives thought we were in a difficult situation and risked the danger of spontaneous combustion to send my grandmother to the hospital. The hospital was the only place with electricity at that time. The hospital was crowded with people, and there were many patients with heat stroke. Some patients were so serious that they had complications. No one took care of my grandmother. But there was a severe shortage of water in the hospital. Ice would be the best solution. And the power resources were also in short supply. After all, this was a small place, and no one had thought of storing so many solar panels. I immediately thought of my basement and the stock supplies. Saving lives is of great importance, and saving others is also saving myself. So I immediately contacted the hospital, asked them to get the ice from the basement, and donated most of the medicine. This greatly relieved the pressure on the hospital. And I also established a cooperative relationship with the hospital. My action helped a lot of people. A middle-aged man specially came to thank me and even wanted to kneel down. It was because this batch of heat relief supplies helped his father get through the difficult time. Everyone showed their respect for my generosity, and my grandmother received timely treatment and woke up. After finishing all this, I finally let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, I told the hospital the approximate location of the oasis. However, the oasis hadn't appeared yet, and I didn't know if anyone would believe me, but I was willing to do my best. It was impossible to get the container back now, so I decided to give it to them anyway. The supplies there were only enough for them to use for a month at most. Then I took my grandmother back to the villa to thank these loyal relatives. I also brought them back to the villa to help them get through this crisis. So far, I have done everything I can. As a daughter, I have tried my best. At the same time, I learned something. For example, my grandmother was also reborn. Now everything makes sense. No wonder she wasn't surprised when I told her that a high-temperature apocalypse was coming. No wonder my grandmother bought a lottery ticket and won a large prize. And no wonder she tried her best to stay with me. Since God has given us a chance to start over, I will firmly grasp it. I thought that everything would be fine from now on, but I didn't expect that my younger brother was the real ungrateful person. That night, my villa was surrounded. I don't know where so many people came from. Fortunately, to prevent the problems caused by human nature in the apocalypse, I had taken protective measures in advance, so no one could break in. Looking at everyone sweating and out of breath, I felt sorry for them and specially took out some drinking water to distribute to them. But unexpectedly, it caused public outrage. Look, it's her. She stole all the supplies and didn't leave us a way to survive. Everyone, drink quickly. This water was originally ours. She stole our things. Some people even waved their fists at me, and I dodged continuously. Then I heard my younger brother's name. If it weren't for Gregory telling us, we would have been deceived by her. She's pretending to be a good person with our things. What kind of person is she? Goodness. I gave them a way to survive, but my younger brother had to provoke me. 6. I calmed down and invited several ringleaders into the villa. I treated them to food and drinks, and finally found out what had happened. My good-for-nothing younger brother wasn't satisfied with living in the container. He insisted on going out to find a better shelter. As a result, he collapsed from the heat on the way and was sent to the hospital by kind-hearted people. He was lucky. There were hardly any people on the road in this weather. After arriving at the hospital, he heard people around him talking about a living bodhisattva who not only donated all the supplies but also contributed her residence as an operating room for the hospital. This aroused my younger brother's curiosity. After inquiring further, he found that the living bodhisattva everyone was talking about had characteristics very similar to mine. My younger brother was completely broken. He was spoiled since childhood. How could he accept that his sister was living in a big villa while he was living in a container? The strong contrast was unbearable for him, so he came up with a bad idea. Speaking of my younger brother, he was a good actor. He shed tears in the hospital and said that he had fainted from the heat on the way to find his sister. He also said that his sister had been disobedient since childhood. In this extreme apocalypse, she abandoned the whole family. took all the supplies, and even took all the money at home. That sister he was talking about was me. My younger brother also said that he had the ability to predict the weather. Before the big temperature drop, he specifically told the people around him to stockpile supplies. He had also predicted this high temperature. At this time, our former neighbor stood up and testified that before the big temperature drop, he had indeed seen that our family had stocked a lot of cold-proof supplies. This made my younger brother's words more convincing. Even more incredibly, my younger brother blamed the fire in our house on me. He said that I deliberately set the fire to harm people and steal the supplies at home. My younger brother vividly made up a story. He said that he had known about the current high temperature since the temperature drop. So he secretly stockpiled a lot of supplies to withstand the heat. He didn't announce the news because the temperature drop had caused chaos before, and he didn't want to create panic. Now that the high temperature had arrived, he had planned to take out the supplies to help everyone get through the crisis, but unexpectedly, I stole them and came to the hospital to pretend to be a good person, to prove his identity. He took out our only family photo. These stories were really wonderful. Many people were indignant and wanted to come to me for an explanation. When I learned about the whole thing, I felt even colder. My younger brother was really an ungrateful person. The patients recuperating in the villa heard about it and stood up for me. An old man even wanted to pull out the infusion tube in his hand and go down to confront them. Seeing this scene, I felt that my efforts hadn't been in vain. Giving should have rewards. I took the house purchase contract and the list of supplies I bought before and walked out of the villa. I showed them to the people outside one by one. At the same time, the hospital director rushed over. "What are you doing? Josephine is our benefactor. If it weren't for her, how could we save so many heatstroke patients? Where would the hospital get so many power generation devices to maintain the ventilators?" At the same time, the bosses who sold me the equipment and medicine recognized me. "It's her, she's the one who bought the solar panels, she's the one who bought the medicine." My younger brother still didn't give up and shouted loudly, "Even if she bought them, she used our family's money." The crowd started talking. Indeed, it was not a small amount of money to buy so many things. At this moment, a bank staff member stood up. "I have an impression, she came to exchange a lottery ticket worth 50 million yuan. What? 50 million yuan? That's not a small amount." Looking at my younger brother's stunned expression, I just thought it was ridiculous, but in the current situation, it wasn't appropriate for me to hold all the supplies tightly in my hands, so I discussed with the relevant departments and decided to distribute supplies to everyone regularly. When the apocalypse comes, if everyone can work together, we might have a chance to survive. But I also made a rule that if there was any looting, I would stop supplying the supplies. Strangely enough, in this situation, everyone obediently followed the order and didn't break the rules. 7. Ding. The survival system has been fully upgraded. Each host will obtain corresponding skills according to their own blessings. The voice of the system suddenly sounded, and I was stunned. The skill I obtained was lowering the temperature. Negative effect: none. This skill was like a life-saving straw for us at present, as long as everyone could hold on until the oasis appeared. It wouldn't be difficult to get through this crisis. Without thinking too much, I immediately chose to use the skill. The surrounding temperature dropped a lot. Although it was still sweltering, it was much more bearable. The most important thing now was to find the oasis. Although I found the exact location of the oasis in my previous life, some things in this life were different from what I remembered. I could only find the approximate location. In the following days, I led a group of strong young people to search for the oasis in the high temperature every day. With the organization of the relevant departments, everyone's life was getting better. Although there was still the risk of the apocalypse, the number of people who died due to the high temperature began to decrease. The power system also started to recover. According to my memory, the oasis would appear in the next 2 days. As long as we found the oasis, we would be saved. At this time, my younger brother actually started a live broadcast, claiming that he had found the oasis and also showed the abundant water resources at home. Many people had hope after watching the live broadcast. Gregory also launched a team activity, saying that those who found the oasis with him could share the resources. The team I led searched for a week but didn't find the oasis. I didn't believe that Gregory could find it, but many people believed him and left my team one after another. I watched them leave coldly. In the face of the disaster, everyone has their own choices. Everyone has to be responsible for their own choices. The temperature in these 2 days was extremely high. Even if I used my temperature-lowering skill continuously, I could only maintain a safe time of 1 hour. But I found that the team led by Gregory could search all day. Gregory's face occupied the whole screen in the live broadcast, and it was obvious that he wanted to become famous. The outside temperature had reached 45 degrees, and it was still rising, but Gregory didn't seem to feel hot at all and looked very cool. After observing for a few days, I was surprised to find something. The team members following him changed almost every day. I realized that something was wrong. Ding. The system prompts that the system has detected a bug and an evil system has invaded. The host is advised not to use it. Otherwise, there will be a backlash. I associated it with my younger brother's claim that he had the ability to predict the weather. Coupled with his calm appearance in the sweltering heat, I understood that Gregory had obtained an evil system. If I wasn't wrong in my analysis, his system's skill should be to transfer the heat he received to others to ensure that he was in a comfortable environment. What a vicious skill. This almost meant sacrificing one life for another. In this way, all my doubts were answered, however. Just to be on the safe side, I still went to the container. As a result, I saw that all the supplies in the container had disappeared, and my parents were lying quietly outside the container without breathing. Gregory must have found that he needed more people to be his medium after using my parents to transfer the heat, otherwise, he might lose his life due to the high temperature threat, so he used finding the oasis as a gimmick, actually wanting to extend his life. Therefore, I made a decision to disband my Oasis team and join Gregory's team. I would use my skill to save the people in Gregory's team. 8. There were a lot of people in Gregory's Oasis team. I easily blended in and promptly used my skill to lower the environmental temperature. Ding. The survival system prompts that the location of the oasis has been released, and it can only be obtained by those who selflessly contribute in the apocalypse. There was no doubt that I got the location of the oasis. Looking at my younger brother who was blindly moving forward, I knew that he didn't receive it. I first sent the location back to the shelter and let everyone go there. Since my shelter was very close to the oasis, I wasn't worried. Instead, in order to save this group of people, I had to find a way to make Gregory move in the right direction. So I used an anonymous account to pretend to be the system and sent a message to Gregory, telling him the correct location. Gregory, who was so stupid, immediately believed it and led everyone to move towards the correct location. At this time, I finally let out a sigh of relief. The location of the oasis was reached soon. The surrounding temperature dropped a lot and returned to a comfortable temperature that the human body could bear. Seeing that the residents of my shelter had all come near the oasis, I finally felt at ease. Everyone was cheering. At this moment, Gregory, who was live broadcasting with his phone in hand, fell down. There was an uproar in the crowd. Gregory's body was covered with a layer of ice. He was actually frozen to death. At this moment, Gregory's conspiracy was finally exposed. All the way, Gregory maintained his comfort by transferring the heat, even in the high temperature of 45 degrees. He felt as if it was only 20 degrees. After arriving at the oasis, the surrounding temperature dropped a lot, but he was still transferring the heat outward, so he was frozen to death. The members of Gregory's oasis exploration team suffered continuous casualties all the way, and now there was finally an explanation for it. At the same time, the members of Gregory's oasis exploration team found that the members of my shelter had already reached the oasis, and they also found me in the team. Why are you here? Of course, our leader found the location of the oasis, and that's why we were able to find it so quickly. The members of my shelter were in high spirits. How did Gregory find it? Someone was puzzled. In order to please my parents, I took on household chores voluntarily, worked part-time to support myself through school, and handed over all the money I earned, but I still couldn't get a good look from my mother. Do you also have a system? Someone in the team asked me. It seemed that he also had a system, but he didn't get the location. After all, in the face of the disaster, everyone had their own choices. I do. My skill is to lower the temperature, but the range is not large. As soon as I said this, several team members beside me were immediately awakened. No wonder. I said why the temperature felt lower after you came. I thought it was because we were getting close to the oasis. I once again became the focus of the crowd. Now the long-awaited oasis was right in front of us, and everyone regained hope for life. Gregory's cold body was lying there quietly, and no one paid attention to him. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully leading the residents to find the oasis. Please start your new life. Yes, we were going to start a new life, with these experiences and lessons. Everyone regarded me as the backbone and devoted themselves to the construction of our new home. Soon, we built a new shelter beside the oasis and also dug a water channel leading to the villa area to provide support for the medical team. Although life wasn't as easy as before, everyone worked from dawn to dusk, and everything returned to its most authentic state. Wasn't this a lucky thing? I turned to look at my grandmother with gray hair at her temples, and my eyes were filled with cherish and gratitude. It was so good, this time. I not only protected the person I loved the most but also helped so many residents. I was no longer a jinx. Ding, the world's danger has been lifted, and the survival system is about to be closed. Please confirm, host. The voice of the system sounded again. I didn't hesitate to press the confirmation button. If possible, I hoped that the survival system would never be activated again. I believe you feel the same way, right? Story 2. As the apocalypse descended with zombies overrunning the city. My best friend told me that my daughter had been bitten and her neck severed. In a panic, I rushed home, only to find my daughter convulsing and barely clinging to life on the floor. As I was overwhelmed with grief, my husband struck me from behind with a baseball bat, knocking me unconscious. He then cut my skin with a knife and sprayed perfume on me, as the zombies tore out my entrails. He and my best friend watched coldly from behind a metal door, holding each other and laughing. A financial burden and an unattractive wife, better dead and not waste resources. When I opened my eyes again, I was back before the zombie crisis began. I loosened the anti-theft locks at home, emptied the snack cabinet, transferred all the money from our accounts, and sprayed perfume with a rusty scent around the house, after ensuring my daughter was safe and stocking up on supplies. I turned on the surveillance to watch this tragic couple's love turn to betrayal. Did you book the private room for my mom's 60th birthday at Tianfu Hotel? It seems decent enough. Just book there. I'll send you the order for the gift boxes on Instagram. Make sure there's a pack of Changhua cigarettes for each seat, and the alcohol has to be Maotai. Oh, and my work leaders and colleagues will be there too, so dress nicely and don't embarrass me. I won't be coming home tonight. Take good care of my mom and treat her to a nice meal. I'm hanging up now, after Jack hung up. I stood there, my body trembling but alive and well, no smell of decay, no disembowelment, no bloodshed. I checked my phone, May 2nd, 2024, I had been reborn 10 days before the zombie crisis. A new message popped up on Instagram from my husband, listing the gifts he wanted me to buy, including La Mer cream, an LV scarf, a gift box of scallops and abalone, and Italian liquor. In my past life, I felt inferior because my parents died early. And I lacked a high education while Jack had a stable job and a graduate degree. I thought I needed to cherish him, so I always gave in to him, but remembering what he did in the past life, anger surged up to my throat. That beast, he had an affair with my best friend and it cost my daughter her life. I still vividly remember finding Ariana lying in a pool of blood at our doorstep, convulsing wildly as she was about to turn into a zombie, her vision blurring as she repeated, "Mom, leave, Mom. Leave." As I struggled to reach her, zombies tore at my body while my husband watched indifferently, his arms around my friend, his face full of contempt. Thinking of his disgusting expression, I felt that even stabbing him now would be letting him off too easily. He needed to suffer 1,000 times more than me, or I would never be satisfied. A plan for revenge quickly formed in my mind. I sent a message, Tianfu Hotel, Luxury Suite 1201, the night of the 11th at 8 p.m., this time. I was going to make sure he fell from grace and died in despair. I couldn't hold back my tears. "Ariana, Mommy will pick you up soon. Can you wait for me patiently?" I was eager to see my daughter and was about to rush out the door when I bumped into Jack's parents returning from a major shopping spree. Jack's mom was holding shopping bags from upscale stores, and Jack's dad was wearing a brand new watch, both smiling radiantly. Their smiles vanished when they saw me heading out. "Where are you going in the middle of the day? Have you cooked the meal?" Seeing them pulled me back into a past life. My mother-in-law has never been satisfied with me. I transferred money to please her and let her shop at the mall, but she still treated me like a servant upon returning. In their eyes, I should be grateful to have married their son and owe them my undying loyalty, and here I was, running back in the scorching heat to cook for them. The more I thought about it, the more disgusted I became. I snatched the shopping bags from their hands, forcefully removed the watch from Jack's father's wrist, pushed past them, and stormed out. "If you look down on me, then don't use my money," Jack's mother screamed, pointing at me and shouting, "How dare you speak to us like that? People without parents really have no manners." Hearing this, rage surged through my head. I slapped her face so hard that a red mark instantly appeared. While they were still stunned, I turned and left. "The world is ending. Who still has the patience for you, acting like you're some kind of royalty?" While driving, Jack frantically called me, but I hung up every call. I used to care about keeping appearances for the sake of our relationship. His whole family lived off me, using my resources, and still had the nerve to be rude to me. They clearly didn't recognize who was in charge. After picking up my daughter, I took a deep breath holding her, and kissed her face several times, finally snapping out of my distraught state. I first settled my daughter in another one of my properties before heading to the office. I never went to college and started hustling early, luckily catching the wave of women's fashion e-commerce. becoming one of the first to start a Taobao women's clothing store. Later, I expanded my brand, made short videos, and did live stream selling, never dropping the ball even after having a child and gradually stepping back from the front line. To avoid panic, I announced that the company would undergo strategic adjustments and move to a new location. I instructed all employees to rest at home, work online, and issued double the usual year-end bonuses. I instructed finance to withdraw and convert as much money as possible into a new card. All told, I had nearly $100 million in cash. Seeing the substantial bank balance finally calmed me down. More important than revenge was to stockpile supplies and survive. I tore off a piece of paper and my brain kicked into high gear. From being a lone fighter to becoming a company boss, I might not claim much, but my ability to act swiftly is first-rate. After listing down important tasks and a shopping list, I immediately rushed to buy a high-end duplex apartment, securing 2 top-floor units accessible only by elevator. I also rented a small warehouse nearby and contacted a former client who dealt in supermarket distribution. I used the pretense of corporate charity donations, gave him a list, and asked him to deliver directly to the warehouse. The list included grains, oils, seasonings, fruits, vegetables, and frozen foods. Boxes of bottled water, mineral water, canned cooked food, instant noodles, biscuits, and so on. Then, I opened the Tmall supermarket app on my phone and started a frenzied shopping spree. After the zombie outbreak, going out was impossible, so I bought many disposable items like bowls, cutlery, disposable underwear, sanitary pads, and more. Next, I ordered a freezer, a cassette stove, an induction cooker, disinfectants, protective gear, flashlights, walkie-talkies, and other safety equipment. I also stocked up on medicines for fever, colds, disinfection, including hemostatic drugs and bandages. Following the list I made, I started the first round of stocking up on essential supplies. Once everything was settled, I took a deep breath and made a phone call to someone. On the other end was a languid, slightly drunken male voice. "Wow, you actually remembered to call me. What's up? Is it the end of the world?" His words caught in my throat. Thinking to myself that he had unwittingly hit the nail on the head, "I sent you a list on your phone. Start working on it immediately. It's urgent. I'll explain later." There was silence for a few seconds on the other end, then the playful tone was gone. "Got it." I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing Tom would take immediate action. This was a testament to the trust between us, having known each other for over a decade, and having fought through countless business battles together. A look or a tone was all it took to understand each other's stance. In this critical moment, he was the only one I could truly rely on. In this apocalypse, besides my daughter, he was the one I hoped would survive. After settling the major issues, I drove home. As soon as I arrived at the door, I heard the noise inside. "What kind of temper does she have? How dare she talk to your mom like that now? What will happen in the future? I told you to get a divorce quickly. She can't even bear a son. And isn't Sophia much prettier and sensible? What are you hesitating for? Oh, Mom, we signed a prenuptial agreement. I won't get much from a divorce. Plus, the house and car were hers before we married. Do you want me to live under a bridge after we divorce?" There was sudden silence inside. Then Jack's mother's voice rose again. "Why not make her transfer the house to your name?" Wishful thinking. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, still carrying the large and small packages she had bought earlier, and forced a smile. "Mom, I was wrong today. Something happened at work and I was in a bad mood." Jack's mother rolled her eyes and immediately grabbed the packages. "This way. There's a new real estate development by East Lake, close to our house. Choose a unit and I'll pay for it." The new development at East Lake, the villa area. Jack's mother's face lit up with joy, pulling my hand and saying, "We're all family. No need for formalities, little squabbles or nothing." Jack looked skeptical. I immediately suggested we go look at the houses and place an order right then, which brought a smile to Jack's face, and the three of them got up to leave, their greedy smiles barely contained. No one cared about the daughter who hadn't come home from school. Once at the sales office, Jack's mother put on her reading glasses and kept asking the staff which was the most expensive unit, wanting to buy the priciest. After looking around, the family chose a unit with a large lawn. I looked too. The villa was very luxurious. The house is surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass windows and boasts a spacious lawn in the yard. Due to its large size, it has 3 entrances and an underground garage that connects to the basement. The area is open without any cover, allowing a clear view inside through the glass windows. I am quite pleased with it. However, Jack's father is somewhat concerned. Being accustomed to living in the countryside, he worries that the house, which seems exposed on all sides, might not be safe. The salesperson at the real estate office, quick to address these concerns, immediately presents a brochure and begins to explain the robust security features of the villa community, including surveillance cameras and facial recognition technology networked together. The residents here are either wealthy or of high social standing, very high quality. If you were to drop $100 in the community, no one would even pick it up. Moreover, the people living here are the elite of City A, and residing here is a symbol of status and identity. With these words, the three initially hesitant buyers quickly decide on the purchase. I promptly make a down payment of $2 million without a second thought. Jack adopts a tender expression. Constantly praising his wife as the best and most important, he sweet-talks me into putting the house under his parents' names. Does he think I'm unaware of his little schemes? If the house were in his name, it would be considered marital property, but if it's in his parents', it will ultimately end up in his hands anyway. I agree outwardly, considerate and gentle, but inwardly, I sneer. He never really sees me as family, always scheming against me. Not only covertly taking my money but also frequently accusing me of not caring enough for the family. Because of my own insecurities, I've been manipulated by him, falling into self-doubt and compliance with his wishes. How foolish I've been. On the ride home, I mention that Ariana won't be home for a few days due to a school trip organized by her kindergarten. Jack hums an acknowledgement, then turns to me with a loving look. Honey, isn't your friend Sophia in interior design? Why don't we let her handle the villa's decoration? She's one of our own and wouldn't cheat us. I suppress the nausea rising in my stomach. I recall a previous life where, over the phone, Sophia's anxious voice told me Ariana had been attacked by zombies, her neck bitten through. She had barely managed to drag her to safety, urging me to come quickly, but later, I clearly saw my daughter's face pale and marked with gruesome, bloody impressions. Those were not marks from a zombie attack. They were clearly the imprints of high heels. Ariana had been tortured by Sophia and thrown to the zombies, and Jack just watched. I've always known Jack didn't like girls, but to see his own daughter die before him and remain indifferent, he's a monster. The two of them, draining my blood, consuming my flesh, scheming until there's nothing left of me. A chill seeps into my bones, and I suddenly feel ice cold. Wife, Jack, noticing my prolonged silence, calls out to me in confusion. I have the urge to stab him right then and there, but reason urges me to stay calm. Now is not the time to act rashly. If I refuse now, a cunning person like Jack would surely notice something amiss. I clench my fists, biting my lip and forcing a casual tone. Sure, let's leave it to Sophia. The pain sharpens my senses. Emma, you really are blind. Just because you long for a home, a place to belong, you've given your all to Jack without any complaints, pouring your heart out. And what did you get in return? It's as if in your past life, you were destined to be left without a grave. I forced my tears back. The shame of betrayal and the painful memories made my mind clearer. I told them I had work matters to handle and that I wouldn't be returning home for a while. Jack's family got what they wanted, happily making video calls and updating their social media, oblivious to my whereabouts. Watching their excited faces, I scoffed. Ariana sensed my tension and unease today, holding tightly onto my hand without letting go, yet she wisely didn't ask the reason. Mom, if you and Dad are going to split up, I'm staying with you. I hugged my understanding daughter and nodded through my tears. In this life, I won't let anyone bully you, and I'll make those who did in the past pay. When Ariana and I arrived at the apartment, Tom was discussing renovations with the contractor. Time was of the essence. I sent Ariana upstairs to sleep and told Tom everything about the past life. Surprisingly, there was none of the skepticism or shock I had anticipated. Tom simply nodded, uttered a calm "oh," and went back to his work. The lengthy explanations I had prepared, including the vows I was ready to make to convince him, were unnecessary. At this point, I couldn't think much about it. With the apocalypse approaching, I had a lot of things to do and information to gather in the next 10 days. I spent nearly all of the following 5 days awake in the apartment. I put Tom in charge of the apartment renovations. All the windows were replaced with one-way bulletproof glass, and despite being on the 22nd floor, I had extra layers of security bars and spikes added to the windows. We chose the thickest curtains available because zombies are attracted to light. We dismantled the smart electronic doors and replaced them with the most traditional and sturdy security doors. Adding an extra reinforced metal door outside, we connected the top 2 apartments to facilitate movement and cleared out unnecessary furniture to make room for supplies. Although I didn't know what the later stages of the apocalypse would bring, we prepared for possible water and power outages. We had to overhaul the apartment's power and water systems, install solar panels for electricity, and set up medium and small generators and battery storage for emergencies. We also installed rainwater collectors and purifiers to ensure we wouldn't run out of water. This included air purification and disinfection systems to protect against external viruses. We prepared emergency descent ropes on the 22nd floor and took measures against fire and mold, all money could handle. As for making excuses, I left that to Tom to arrange. We both were seasoned business people, adept at managing tasks and people strictly. I took charge of purchasing supplies a second time. Unlike my initial haphazard buying, this time, I researched various survival resources and planned my purchases carefully. I chose food that could be stored long-term, such as cured meats, smoked fish, and canned goods. For perishables like live chickens, ducks, beef, and pork, I vacuum-sealed and froze them. I also bought many seeds and started a plot to experiment with growing our own food. I have prepared clothes for both everyday and extremely cold weather. And I've got all kinds of sheets and blankets. I also bought disposable toilet seat covers, which can be thrown away after use. This includes the first batch of medical supplies that weren't fully stocked, such as anti-inflammatory and antibacterial medications, protective suits, gas masks, and more. I've also got machetes and air guns for protection, because you never know what might happen when it's the end of the world. It's best to be prepared. I've also acquired a DJI drone, a Huawei satellite phone, surveillance equipment, and protective electric fencing among other security systems. Additionally, I've stocked up on entertainment products to pass the time and bought numerous electronic devices to prevent damage, loading them with variety shows, movies, and TV series. I've also gathered books and toys for Ariana's education, covering everything from kindergarten to middle school. With enough money, all of this was quickly assembled. After all, in the darkness of the end times, it's not the lack of food that's scary, but the numbness of people losing the will to live. Everything was first sent to a warehouse, and then I quietly arranged for it to be delivered in batches. I set up shelves to store the items, categorizing everything neatly. The neighbors occasionally bumped into me but thought I was just moving in and didn't pay much attention. After a few days, I couldn't keep it from my daughter anymore. Perhaps it was better to tell her in advance about the apocalypse to alleviate her fears. Surprisingly, Ariana, being young, showed no fear at all. She started acting like a little housekeeper, busily organizing the supplies I had purchased and thoroughly enjoying herself. Watching her small figure running around joyfully, she seemed to treat the looming apocalypse as just a game of house, and I couldn't help but shake my head indulgently. I have no intention of telling Ariana about my past life. Her being carefree is good enough. Looking around at my preparations, the apartment was as secure as a fortress, filled with supplies, and I finally felt a bit of relief from the warlike tension. Jokingly, I said to Tom, "Feels like we could live here for a lifetime." Tom turned to me and replied, "Living like this for a lifetime wouldn't be so bad." There was a glint of amusement in his eyes. Even though I knew he was making light of the situation, I instinctively avoided his gaze. I had a dreamless night and slept the most soundly since being reborn. The next day, as soon as I woke up, Jack called. He started by feigning concern, asking how I'd been eating and reminding me not to stay up late and ruin my health. Then he asked when I would be coming home. I frowned. If Jack didn't want something, he wouldn't bother with such niceties, thinking back on how he had deceived me before. I felt disgusted and responded indifferently, "What is it? I'm busy at the office, and I won't be coming back in the next few days." Hearing this, Jack seemed relieved and his tone softened. "It's nothing much, just about the payment for the renovation team. You know, Sophia's company is a big business, and they require payment in advance for the designers before work can commence." I scoffed coldly, knowing it was about money. "I've recently been restricted from making transfers. You'll have to cover it for now." After that, I hung up and turned on the home-installed cameras, originally set up to watch Ariana from home. I activated the cameras in the living room and her bedroom. Sure enough, there were 4 people sitting around the public phone in the living room, Sophia among them. Her face soon turned sour. Jack's mother was the first to speak. "What does she mean by restricted transfers? It's clear she just doesn't want to pay." A woman who's always out and about, showing her face. In the live stream, the person striking poses is hardly conducting legitimate business. She never comes home, definitely messing around outside. Jack's expression darkened. Sophia glanced over and cooed reassuringly on purpose, "Auntie, just think of her as an ATM. The more she earns, the more we can take, right? When the beloved grandchild is born, we'll be set for life." Jack's mother actually smiled, quickly getting up to cook. Jack took her hand and they went to his room. The two of them were so affectionate it almost spilled out of the screen. "Jack, you should ask for more money. What about our future children? You don't still have feelings for Emma, do you? A man needs to be ruthless." In the high-definition camera view, Jack responded to Sophia with a passionate French kiss, both of them passionately moving their heads as they nibbled on each other. "How can that old-fashioned woman compare to you? You know just how to take care of me, my little darling." I frowned, wanting to turn it off, but then hearing him mumble, "Don't worry, I have her videos. I'm going to the company to confront her now. She won't dare not give me the money." I stiffened all over. For a moment, my mind went blank. Even though I knew the man I had shared a bed with for many years was despicable, I hadn't expected him to be so devious. When did he secretly record those intimate videos without my knowledge? Was this a backup plan he had prepared earlier? Did he send them to anyone else? What exactly was he? My head clouded as someone helped me to stand up. Tom was already putting on his coat. Let's go. Sure enough, just as we arrived at the company entrance, I saw Jack and Jack's mother, both pale with anger, being stopped by security. Sophia, dressed in a chic ensemble, looked anxious. The company doors were shut. No one inside working. Seeing them, I feigned surprise. Jack's mother charged up. You whore, did you transfer all the company's assets away? I knew you were messing around. Who is this man? Is he keeping you? You have no shame, she yelled as she tried to grab me, but Tom stepped in front of me. Security quickly intervened, recognizing Tom, and respectfully addressed him. Boss Tom, Boss Emma, you've arrived. I, perfectly made up and in high heels, walked up to them calmly. The company is expanding. We're restructuring the staff and address. Everyone is working online now. You can verify all these online. Why don't you check it yourselves? Boss Tom is our biggest partner. We've been busy with meetings recently. Tom timely added, we've been busy with shareholder meetings, acquiring some good garment factories, and many investors are interested in our business. Looks like next year the company might go public. Jack's mother clearly didn't understand all this, but seeing Jack nodding and smiling, she sensed it was something positive. I explained that due to recent numerous transactions, he would have to make payments first, and once the transfer freeze was lifted, I would immediately transfer the funds to him. Jack and his mother left first, but Sophia deliberately stayed behind. She leaned in to chat with me about how to purchase shares. Taking her hand, I whispered in her ear, initial shares start at 2 million. Buying them is scoring big. And you could earn millions in dividends in just a year. Only insiders can purchase these initial shares. If you weren't my best friend, I wouldn't even tell you this. Watching Sophia's eyes spin, I knew, just as expected. When I returned home and checked the surveillance footage, Sophia began to whisper sweet nothings. Gradually, their whispers led them to the bed. Watching the two of them move incessantly on Ariana's pink sheets, I closed my eyes. A few minutes later, only the sound of heavy breathing remained in the room. Despite her conscience, Sophia was praising Jack for his prowess as she began to promote her scheme. It wasn't long before they agreed to mortgage their current house and all their belongings. They moved into a modest, unrenovated villa, planning to use Sophia's identity to purchase original shares. Within a few days, Sophia came to me, eager to buy 5 original shares in one go. I calculated in my mind that aside from Jack's money, Sophia must have also drained all her savings. I accepted the money and signed the contract in front of Sophia. She even had a lawyer witness it to ensure its authenticity. I jokingly said she really didn't trust me. Deep down, I knew clearly that when doomsday arrived, money would be the least useful thing, and the law would become irrelevant. After confirming everything multiple times, she left with a smile, saying we would meet again at the birthday feast that evening. I glanced at my watch. May 11th, just one day left until the zombie virus outbreak. I hoped they would enjoy themselves, enjoy the grand gift I had meticulously prepared for them before the darkness set in. That evening at the Tinfu restaurant, the lights shone brilliantly, reflecting a scene of luxury and splendor, even in my absence. The lavish birthday banquet for Jack's mother went on without a hitch. Dressed in a tight red cheongsam that bunched up around her stomach, Jack's mother laughed and trembled as she toasted with the guests all around. Jack's father, full of excitement, showed the local folks the sculptures and decorations nearby, boasting proudly. Jack, looking as if a great event was about to happen, was drunk and staggering, while Sophia, playing the role of the hostess, supported him. The dining table was laden with expensive gifts, including high-end skincare brands and luxury cigarettes and alcohol requested by Jack. The dishes were also upscale, with mountains of abalone and birds' nests, and a continuous supply of Matai liquor. Each table was served multiple portions of abalone, and some of Jack's rural guests even hid bottles of Matai in their clothes. Everything appeared harmonious and grand. Back at Jack's new villa where I had just finished my work, I watched the video Tom had sent me and clicked my tongue in amusement, but soon, Tom sent another video. In the middle of the banquet, the large screen suddenly started playing a video with ambiguous sounds coming from the speakers. The video showed a man and a woman in vigorous action, with their sweaty faces clearly visible as the footage was enlarged. I couldn't help but marvel at the quality of the surveillance equipment I had purchased. The banquet hall fell silent instantly, leaving only the high-quality surround sound system to fill the room. The man's provocative words and the woman's breathy responses echoed through the hall. Jack, you're amazing. Sophia, slow down. Keep it down. When is your mom going back to the countryside? She won't live with us in the villa, right? It's suffocating. I can't even enjoy my time with you properly. Don't worry, once my mom's big birthday celebration is over, I'll send her back. The video looped these parts leaving the attendees, even if their vision was unclear, in no doubt of what they were witnessing. It was clear to everyone who the two people were. Some individuals started laughing mischievously, others began recording and taking photographs. Among the crowd were Jack's co-workers and leaders from his organization, all insiders who quickly left the scene with stern faces to avoid any association with the unfolding drama. The banquet had turned into a complete fiasco. Jack's mother was utterly humiliated and in a fit of anger, kicked Sophia and began slapping her fiercely on the face. "You shameless woman, always causing trouble at home, you've disgraced our family and even turned my son against me, what a venomous heart you have." Jack, his face pale with anger, pushed his mother away. Jack knew this incident would ruin the reputation he had carefully built and could potentially cost him his government job, but he couldn't abandon Sophia, especially since she was pregnant with his child. Sophia, clutching her stomach, turned pale. Jack's mother continued her tirade uncontrollably until Jack's father slapped her, twisting her face to the side. The four of them were pulling at each other, looking disheveled and mad, completely losing all decorum. In the end, the server had no choice but to ask everyone to leave and began cleaning up the mess. As Jack's family was about to leave, they were stopped by the hotel manager. "Mr. Jack, your bill amounts to 2,835,400 yuan. Let's round it down to 2,835,000 yuan. Would you like to pay by card or scan a code?" The video ended with a sweep over the four ashen and furious faces, including Jack's, as hotel security began to gather around. As Tom was leaving, he kicked Jack one more time, watching the person on the ground fall clumsily. I felt a sense of relief, and my actions hastened. I checked the results of my overnight efforts. The surveillance cameras, battery operated and well hidden, covered every corner. The security door had been chopped up with a saw and its screws loosened. I had thoughtfully arranged various items in the villa, from clothes to food and facilities. Lastly, I took out a perfume named Bloody Mary, with its rusty scent, and sprayed it in every corner of the villa. Perfect. Pleased with my work, I clapped my hands, got into my car, and drove off. Tonight was the last peaceful night. I was almost eager to see their thrilling performance as tomorrow's apocalypse approached. It was a mild May day, neither cold nor hot. After one final check of my apartment's facilities, I started cooking hot pot, humming as I chopped ingredients. Ariana hadn't been to school in a long time and sat quietly reading on the sofa. Tom came over from next door with several dishes in hand. I was impressed. Sweet and sour ribs, crispy fried pork, and spicy stir-fried pork, all looked and smelled delicious. It seemed our taste buds were in for a treat in the days ahead. Just as we were about to start eating, Jack called. I curiously switched the phone to speaker. "Honey, please come back. I was wrong. I apologize. But it was your friend who seduced me. She's the promiscuous one. I was just confused. I still love you. Can you come back? After all, I am Ariana's father, and she needs a complete family. Don't worry. I will never bring Sophia's child home. Honey, could you first transfer 2 million yuan to me? How could you forget to pay for the birthday banquet?" I should have known better than to take that call. Hearing this before dinner really turns my stomach. "Stop being so gross, Jack. I wish you were dead." Ariana chimed in too. "I don't want you as my dad anymore. I have a new dad now." I hung up the phone and immediately covered her mouth. Tom, on the other hand, didn't seem to care and joked. "Kids say the darndest things. Why are you so worked up?" I sheepishly lowered my hand, feeling a bit guilty. After blocking the numbers of Jack's family, I started to enjoy today's hot pot gathering. I used to always be busy working for others, juggling work and home with no time to relax and enjoy good food. Now, being forced to stop, I find my heart much more at peace and comfortable. After dinner, I put Ariana to bed. I blissfully turned on the projector, accessed the surveillance cameras of Jack's family villa, and started my drama watching. I didn't expect the scenes to be so thrilling. I was so engrossed that I forgot to eat my popcorn. In Jack's villa, 3 of the 4 people were gasping for breath on the floor. Jack's mother was making a scene on the ground. How can I show my face now? I can't go back to the village. People will laugh at my spine, saying my son messes around with women. Bring Emma back. She just wants to see me embarrassed. I'll kill her. Jack's father was collapsed on the floor, looking pained. 1,800,000, my life savings from farming, gone in one night. What a sin, you wretched woman, celebrating your 60th birthday as if your life depended on it, just to save face. You're ruining us. Sophia, holding her belly, cried pitifully. Jack, I followed you without any formal commitment. You owe me an explanation now. How am I supposed to face people after this? I can't swallow this pride. And Jack leaned against the door, smoking alone. Just find Emma. I'll make sure she spits out her teeth. I want her ruined. Enough screaming. Just go wash up and sleep. I have dirt on that woman. She won't dare disobey me. I'll find her tomorrow. They dispersed with defeated expressions, completely oblivious to the oddities in their home. The next day, I woke up late in the morning. Tom had made breakfast, and Ariana came running to tell me to watch the news, so I lazily went downstairs. We both stared intently at the TV, and news I had seen in a past life. A car flipped and caught fire on the highway. A blood-covered person crawled out, limbs twisted strangely, head turned 180 degrees, biting the rescuer. Then, the camera moved to subway surveillance. A passenger fell unconscious and upon waking, started biting people. Experts claimed it might be a type of rabies virus, telling people not to worry. I told Tom, that's the initial stage of a zombie outbreak. No one knew how it started, nor did anyone care about the short news segment, but as the morning passed, social media and video platforms were flooded with mentions of the zombie virus. The internet was overwhelmed. The zombie apocalypse began to spread explosively. Some stores started looting and rioting. Streets filled with screams, soon overtaken by gruesome hordes of zombies. In such times, money becomes even more precious. Before the apocalypse spread, while everyone harbored a hope of luck, many foresight wealthy people exchanged hundreds of thousands for supplies. Hiring people to steal goods also accumulated quite a stash for them. When Jack realized that not only his money, but also Lin Jing's and both his parents' funds had been siphoned off by me, he found that between the four of them, they couldn't scrape together even 10,000 yuan. In a post-apocalyptic world, that amount was just a drop in the bucket. I sent Ariana upstairs to watch cartoons and then turned on the surveillance feed. Tom leaned in, insisting on watching with me. I've had it with Jack's family for a while now. Stop dawdling, let's get on with it. It's finally time for the Empress to return to the palace after surviving the ordeal. I raised an eyebrow. Well, he sure knew his stuff. On the surveillance, it seemed the villa area was still in decent shape. The first floor of the villa had large transparent windows, and we could see a solitary zombie pounding on the wall outside. Unable to get in, Sophia and Jack were barricading the door with tables and chairs and had also locked the basement door, busying themselves for quite a while. You could clearly see the sweat on their faces from the surveillance. The image quality is pretty good. At least 720p, befitting a distinguished member like me. Tom commented. Jack, increasingly agitated, furiously scrolled through his phone, then started making calls for help, but with nothing to offer as leverage, he ended up smashing his phone in frustration. Jack's parents rummaged through the house for food and other necessities. Since they hadn't been living in the villa for long, the supplies weren't extensive. However, Jack loved snacks, and his mother had ordered a large box of them online, filling up the snack cabinet. Good thing we have this cabinet full of snacks, it should last us a few weeks. Jack had initially planned to venture out and scavenge for more supplies while the villa area was still relatively safe, but after seeing the full snack cabinet, he decided against going out. Tom turned to me, puzzled. Did you put laxatives in their food? I just shook my head, smiling without a word. I took a screenshot of the snack cabinet from the surveillance and posted it in the residence group that Jack's family hadn't joined. My house is at Building B, Unit 2-1, currently unoccupied. I've bought a lot of snacks and drinks previously. If any neighbors need them, feel free to take some. The code for the electronic lock is 456353. The surveillance showed a group of people confidently heading towards the villa. Meanwhile, Jack's family was huddled on the third floor, engrossed in watching TV in their phones, completely unaware that their door had been opened. It was only when the footsteps grew louder that Jack's father sensed something was amiss and looked downstairs. Thieves. When the two groups encountered each other, a bit of food became a lifesaver, and no one cared about laws or morals anymore. The homeowner said we could take it. How dare you squatters hoard all the food? We are the homeowners. Give us back our stuff, Sophia argued defiantly. Jack's mother didn't care about the details. She and Jack, armed with knives, charged out and slashed several people, fiercely defending their supplies. You bandits, wait till I get back and I'll make you pay. Jack quickly changed the electronic door's password, hurling insults at my entire family. Unperturbed, I posted another message in the neighborhood group. Forgot to mention, my door's not very sturdy, a gentle knock could break it down. If the electronic lock runs out of battery, feel free to pry it open, I won't hold you responsible. As night fell, Jack's family hurriedly hid their snacks. They had all taken refuge on the third floor, but soon, they discovered that the water was cut off. They assumed that the zombies had damaged the water gate, but in fact, it was me who had instructed the property manager to shut it off yesterday. Since I hadn't been back for a long time, I asked him to close my water valve. One might survive without food, but what about without water? Tonight's dinner was steak paired with red wine. I steamed Ariana's favorite custard buns, cooked some milk and steamed dumplings, but Tom didn't come over. He texted me saying he hadn't moved much recently and just had some self-heating hot pot casually. He also reminded me to turn off the main lights and high-power appliances. only keeping a small light on to avoid making noise. The high-rise I chose is only accessible by elevator, and as long as residents don't go out, it's relatively safe, but we still need to be extremely cautious. After all, the most terrifying thing at the end of the world isn't the zombies, but the malicious people. For instance, the doors to the front and backyards of Jack's large villa had been pried open. I had already damaged those doors, and now a few people could easily pull them open and throw them far away. Nighttime is when zombies are least active, and clearly, these people were having an easy time, compared to the daytime's overt activities. At night they were more cautious, using flashlights and treading lightly, but that didn't mean they were soft-hearted. In the apocalypse, grabbing any useful supplies was a win. In the darkness, someone whispered, "Isn't this wrong? Shouldn't we leave some for them?" Yeah. More than ever, we need to stick together. Aren't we indirectly killing people by doing this? A tall guy quickly retorted, "You weren't chopped today, were you?" "I'm still bleeding from my arm." He was trying to kill. "It's survival time now. If you want to be the good guy, go back home and let the Leshan giant Buddha sit down for you." Soon, they quieted down, but their hands moved faster. Everyone knew that the first day wasn't the worst. Who knew if there would be a chance to go out later? They plundered vigorously. Through the night vision surveillance, I saw them ransack the snacks in the fridge, and then start searching everywhere. Some took blankets from the sofa, others took vases still filled with water, some packed up kitchenware and dinner knives. They grabbed everything they could from the tables. Over the course of the night, they made several trips back and forth. Eventually, they even sneaked into Jack's family's bedrooms, quietly taking blankets, charging cables from the bedside tables, and even the condoms from the drawers. When life is threatened, people can do anything. I watched the silent drama unfold with great interest all night. Only when Jack's villa was completely emptied, the doors wide open and the wind howling through, did I feel a secret thrill. Unable to hold back my sleepiness any longer, I drank a glass of milk and peacefully went to sleep. The next day, as soon as the alarm rang, I got up. I found that Jack's family was still deep in sleep, probably exhausted from the previous day. I opened a packet of Chongqing noodle seasoning, cooked a bowl of noodles, and made a pot of pear and white fungus sweet soup. As I had been feeling a bit overheated from eating lately, Tom came over for a meal, and after eating, we started researching how to accelerate seed germination, burying our heads in the 3,000 Questions on Agricultural Planting book I bought. When suddenly a scream came from the monitor, I quickly put down what I was doing and rushed over. Sophia saw the ransacked villa, her face turned pale, and she staggered backwards, because the doors had been pried open and I had sprayed perfume. Several zombies had already entered the first floor. Attracted by Sophia's scream, Jack's father reacted swiftly, pulling Sophia upstairs, but his arm was grabbed, tearing his sleeve and scratching his arm in the process. Jack's mother quickly assisted Sophia, helping her up to the third floor. After all, despite her feelings towards Sophia, she was carrying the future grandson of Jack's family. Both women, trembling, clung to the top floor using their hands and feet, but before they could catch their breath, a painful roar came from below. "You dare!" A minute later, Jack appeared, silently carrying a knife, but there was no sign of Jack's father. The two women, terrified, collapsed on the floor. Jack's mother was no longer screaming, her expression numb and vacant. I covered my mouth, feeling goosebumps all over my body. Through the surveillance, I clearly saw, in a flash, Jack's knife brutally descending towards his father's head. With another forceful blow, Jack's father fell to the ground floor, his head gruesomely shattered, blood everywhere. The zombies were drawn away by the scent of blood, making the upper floors temporarily safe. Jack's cold-blooded and cruel demeanor pulled me back to a past life. I covered my mouth, nearly vomiting. At that moment, Tom gently wrapped his arms around my shoulders and turned off the camera. "It's all over. Don't be afraid. You are brave, and he can no longer find you. Stop watching. Go rest. I'll keep watch." Suddenly, I developed a fever and fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I was holding my daughter, being furiously chased by zombies. Running, I ended up in a dead end. The zombies got closer, and upon a closer look, Jack's face emerged on the zombies. Just as I was about to be bitten, the scent of food wafted into my nose. The face before me suddenly turned into a meat bun. The blood in my eyes became flowers, and I was bathed in a warm ray of sunlight. When I woke up, it was already noon the next day. Ariana, with tears on her face, held a cup of fever medicine, her little face full of worry, and Tom, with dark circles under his eyes, holding a plate of meat buns. "Thought you turned into a zombie. I was about to throw you out if you didn't wake up." He reached out anxiously to check my forehead temperature, but I grabbed his hand instead. I said nothing. After all, in this apocalyptic world overrun with zombies, no one can be sure of the future, let alone express their feelings freely like in normal life. But in that moment of eye contact, it felt as though everything was said. In the darkness, That little bit of light was a fortunate misfortune I didn't want to let go. For some reason, since that dream, I found myself caring less about the movements of Jack's family. I hadn't turned on the camera for several days. On the 5th day of the zombie outbreak, not a single living person could be seen on the streets. Our building had lost water and electricity. I looked through the single-pane glass window, and below was a dense crowd of the undead. Someone had leaked information claiming that new residents had moved into the 22nd floor, that the door had been fortified with double layers, surely in anticipation, and stocked with plenty of supplies. Over the past few days, the door had been knocked on frequently, but I wore headphones and did not respond. As more people gathered, the sounds of knocking and electric saws began to rise. After I warned everyone in the homeowners group and was ignored, I turned on the power switch. After a scream at the door, all returned to silence. The small generator was still supplying power to the grid without any issues. Maybe they were frightened by the electricity, or perhaps they found the reinforced door too sturdy to breach, and gradually, no one attempted to approach anymore. By the 6th day, out of sheer boredom, I turned on the surveillance system again. To my surprise, Jack's house was completely empty. I searched for a while and finally spotted Jack in one of the many camera feeds. He was curled up in the attic storage room on the 4th floor, staring dully with a large pot in front of him. Where did he find food? Out of curiosity, I started to rewind the surveillance recordings. On the 2nd day, Jack's father was tragically killed. On the 3rd day, the 3 of them were starving but barely holding on. On the 4th day, after 4 days of hunger, Jack couldn't stand it anymore and crept downstairs in the dark. On the 5th day, my eyes widened in horror. That morning, Jack's mother pulled Jack into a corner and whispered to him. I turned up the volume, and Jack's mother's voice was eerily calm. This can't go on. Lin Jing surely won't be able to give birth, and if she does, the baby will die. Plus she's the reason your father died. It wasn't for her. How would Jack's father have died? Maybe while you can survive without food, but not without water. I've heard that young women's blood has the highest water content. I saw a moment of hesitation cross Jack's gaunt face. Quickly, his survival instinct overtook his reason, and he stretched out a kitchen knife towards Lin Jing, who was asleep. But what happened next was utterly unexpected. Lin Jing wasn't asleep. She had heard everything. In the moment Jack hesitated, she lunged forward, grabbed the knife, and struck at Jack's mother. Jack's mother screamed horribly but did not back down, clawing at Lin Jing's eyes. The 2 women fought bitterly, each fueled by hatred and resentment. Jack watched in horror, as if frozen in place. Both women died before his very eyes. A sense of vengeful satisfaction briefly surged through me, quickly smothered by sadness. These 2 women, filled with hatred towards each other, had destroyed themselves over a man, and yet the one who survived was the deepest in sin. Is this why good people die young and misfortunes last for ages? I sighed and turned off the surveillance. Half a month passed, and the potatoes I had planted were beginning to sprout. I began to plan Ariana's studies methodically and incorporated physical exercise into our daily routine. Thankfully, Tom had thoughtfully equipped us with a treadmill and a rowing machine. The weather was gradually warming up, and the air outside seemed to be getting murkier. We were careful with our drinking water and hadn't used much, but to prepare for the future, I started the rainwater collector to gather water resources. I also opened the hard drive and pulled out the electrical repair principles and other course materials I had stored to start learning. Life went on methodically, eating well, sleeping regularly, and with daily exercise, we seemed to be more spirited. On an uneventful evening, as I was exploring a new recipe, Tom gently embraced me from behind. Jack is dead. He had eaten his fill, but couldn't bear the thirst anymore. He wanted to run to the fountain in the residential area's flowerbed to drink water, possibly because the smell of blood on him was too strong. Before reaching the ground floor, he was attacked by zombies. He was torn into several pieces and died instantly, without turning into a zombie. I was stunned for a moment, then let out a long sigh of relief, expelling all the murky feelings from within me. My revenge was successful. From now on, our goal, not just mine, is to survive. December 31st, 2024, half a year after the apocalypse began. When stocking up, I only thought about survival. As days passed, I realized how much we depended on small tools in our previous detailed lives. For example, without signal and internet on my phone, I could only keep track of dates using a watch and paper money. Like a peeler, to conserve food, now I cook most food with the skin on. The situation outside has stabilized a lot, with zombies losing their vitality as they run out of food. Through the telescope, I noticed that some people had survived and even formed civilian support armies. However, I never revealed my location. Having seen the true nature of people in desperate times, it's better to be cautious. We've only used a small portion of our supplies. The water storage system is functioning, but we only use the sterilized water for washing clothes and everyday needs. The power system is operational, but to ensure long-term use, the three of us live in half of my apartment, using only the essential high-power appliances. The three of us are barely maintaining our mental health. Tom, once a carefree wealthy young man, has started to enjoy gardening and cooking. He used to handle multi-million-dollar projects in his office, always serious in meetings and meticulous about proposals. Now, he spends his days pondering over potatoes, coming up with Michelin star level new recipes every day, mainly because Tom is tall and burly. Seeing him in a Hello Kitty apron, with hair I cut neatly, he increasingly looks like a domestic husband. I bought the apron in a random pattern. I can only cut hair in the simplest style, but surprisingly, Tom's mood has been more stable than mine, and he's really good at comforting children, teaching kids homework. A perennial challenge that nearly breaks me, but Tom always has endless patience. With examples and stories, he has 1,000 ways to make the textbooks come alive. Gradually, Ariana spends more time clinging to him than to me, cooking, gardening, schooling, even playing games. Ariana always wants to be with Tom. I definitely feel less favored. One day, Tom, drunk, said, "If you ever leave me, can I still be Ariana's dad?" Then late at night, he changed, fiercely biting my neck. "Don't you dare leave me." I then realized he had a lot of hidden motives when stocking up. Over time, Tom confessed that through our increasingly coordinated efforts, he realized his feelings had grown beyond mere appreciation. He had fallen in love, but since I already had a family, he chose to watch from a distance. Actually, when you were explaining about the zombies, I wasn't really listening. All I heard was that we were going to live together. So, apocalypse or not, how could I miss such a great opportunity? After all, the deals between us have never been at a loss. He warmed his hands by a small heater, holding my hand, his reasoning bold though perhaps not entirely logical. Perhaps because the city was empty, the winter was colder than ever, the thermometer on the wall showed -5 degrees Celsius. We had plenty of coats and quilts, but the only heating equipment was an electric blanket and the small heater. Naturally, the electric blanket was for Ariana. Throughout the long winter, Tom and I held hands tightly and shared thoughts we might never have told anyone else in our lives. There was a moment when I selfishly thought that continuing like this wouldn't be so bad. I'll send you the order for the wedding gift boxes on Instagram later. We need a pack of cigarettes for each seat, and the liquor has to be Moutai. The once bustling city of Shinhwa now lies silent as a morgue, its skyscrapers overgrown with moss, the view from our windows filthy beyond recognition. I had just opened a can of food and was about to eat when suddenly I heard the roar of helicopters outside, and the voice of a woman on the broadcast. Excited and tearful, she announced that the zombie virus was weakening, the nation had gained control of the situation, and residential bases had been established. She urged all survivors not to lose hope. Then the national anthem played, hoping to inspire the survivors. My heart leapt with joy, and I excitedly drew back the curtains that had been closed for so long. Sunlight streamed in, casting a beautiful rainbow pattern. Outside on the streets, a few tanks adorned with camouflage patterns and national flags were clearing out the remaining zombies. The three of us held each other tightly, overwhelmed with emotions. The apocalypse was over. We had survived. A new world was beckoning us.